going back in. Are we ready? Thank you, Chief.
Did you email this? Did you email this? Did you email it? Oh, okay. I thought you said, did you see them? I didn't know. Some of this stuff is weak.
Entertain a motion from council to go back into session out of executive session.
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second. Clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne,
Aye.
Councilmember Groby, Councilmember Dills,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock,
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Aye. Motion carries. For those in the audience, we went into executive session at 4 o'clock. We've just returned out of executive session, which would take us to item number 1F on that special executive session meeting, and that is to consider action pursuant. Actually, it takes us to item 1C, E, and F, and there'll be no action on any of those. Tom, we don't need to do a motion or any, okay. Item C, E, and F will require no action, or the executive session will require no action this evening. So entertain a motion to adjourn out of the executive
So moved.
session.
Second.
Motion and a second. The clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne,
Aye.
Councilmember Groby,
Aye.
Councilmember Dills,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock,
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
All right, we are adjourned out of that executive session. I'd like to ask for your patience. I think a couple of us may need a break here just before we begin our regular session, before we go into regular session. So give us about 5 minutes, maybe 5-10 minutes at the most. How many? 7? Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, we're all good. We're good. I've got the attachments printed out. I didn't think there was anything to sign on these, so I didn't print that out. I didn't print it out, I saw it. Yeah, I looked. Yeah, because I looked through them. Yeah, they were all there.
Is he on the right?
Every meeting. Where are we going to start? Where are we starting at? I mean, we're going to go into council, then go to utility, or are we just going to start utility?
Midtown reading.
Are we going to go through the full of like the airport authority? We're going to do it first and go through the whole thing.
Yes, yeah, Lydia.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Ready on the right? We'll let the record show it's about 9 minutes after 6. We're going to deviate a little bit from our regular order of business. We're going to open this evening in the Durant City Utilities Authority. But before I call that meeting to order, I'd like to ask James Dalton, if he would, our good friend, to lead us in an invocation, and followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by Vice Mayor Hitchcock. And those of you that can stand, please stand and remain standing for the pledge.
Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for the day, the beauty of the day. We thank you for the health we have, the breath of life you give us. We thank you for the freedom that we enjoy in the country we live in. Pray to be with our family, those that are represented here tonight. Pray to be with our council, our leadership, give them wisdom. Father, we just ask that you help as we go through the night, that everyone remains civil, Father, and do the right thing. Lord, we thank you for every good thing that we forget so many times just in the day we walk the life we have. We want to lift up Ron Lawyer's wife, Debbie, as she starts physical therapy for tomorrow. Lord, we thank you for, again, this evening. Thank you for the freedom and joy of the country, be with the service people and those in homes. In Jesus' name,
Amen.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You can be seated, please. We'll let the record show that it's 6:15, and I will call to order the regular monthly meeting of the Durant City Utilities Authority, June the 12th, 2018, and ask the secretary to call the roll, please.
Trustee Hawthorne,
Here.
Trustee Grooby. Here. Trustee Dills.
Here.
Vice Chairman Hitchcock.
Here.
Chairman Tomlinson.
Here. For the record, all members are present. We have a full quorum. Just kind of an FYI, one of the reasons for kind of doing this out of the normal is that some action is required in this authority in order for the council, when we meet as the council, to take some action. So in saying that, we'll move right along here with our business. First order of business is the consent items docket. We have items 1A and B. Are there any to be removed for consideration under item number 2? Hearing none, entertain a motion.
Move to approve. Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? And the only discussion I think we'll probably have is congratulations, Kenneth Cooper. Kenneth will now represent us on the Southern Oklahoma Regional Disposal, otherwise known as the SWORD Board. Kenneth, I know you'll represent us well. Thank you. Secretary will record the vote, please.
Trustee Hawthorne.
Aye.
Trustee Groby.
Aye.
Trustee Dills.
Aye.
Vice Chairman Hitchcock.
Aye.
Chairman Tomlinson.
Aye, motion carries. Item number 3 under administration. Consider approval of a motion to file the Durant City Utilities Authority fiscal year 1819 financial plan with the City Council as beneficiary. Tim, do you discuss that? Okay.
Yes, Mayor, this is simply a routine item that's done each year that where public trusts that fall under Title 60 of the Oklahoma State statutes have to file annually with respect to the beneficiaries, the final plan or the financial plan or the budget. So this is, again, a routine item that we do each year.
Any questions for the city manager? If not, entertain a motion.
Move to approve. Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the clerk or the secretary will record the vote, please.
Trustee Hawthorne.
Aye.
Trustee Groby.
Aye.
Trustee Dills.
Aye.
Vice Chairman Hitchcock.
Aye.
Chairman Tomlinson.
Aye, motion carries. Under information items, we have A, B, C, and D. Any reports trustee members, authority members would like to discuss? Hearing none, entertain a motion to adjourn out of Utilities Authority.
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, Secretary will record the vote, please.
Trustee Hawthorne.
Aye.
Trustee Groby.
Aye.
Trustee Dills.
Aye.
Vice Chairman Hitchcock.
Aye.
Chairman Tomlinson.
Aye, we are adjourned out of the Utilities Authority. Let the record show it is now 6:20. I will call to order the Durant Airport Authority regular monthly meeting of June the 12th, 2018, and ask the Secretary to call the roll, please.
Trustee Hawthorne.
Here.
Trustee Groby.
Here.
Trustee Dills.
Here.
Vice Chairman Hitchcock.
Here.
Chairman Tomlinson.
Here, for the record, all members are present. We have a full quorum. Go to our first order of business. Item number 1 is the consent docket. We have items 1A. Do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, Secretary will record the vote, please.
Trustee Hawthorne.
Aye.
Trustee Groby.
Aye.
Trustee Dills.
Aye.
Vice Chairman Hitchcock.
Aye.
Chairman Tomlinson.
Aye, motion carries. Okay. Which takes us to item number 3 on the agenda, citizen comments on non-agenda items. Citizens wishing to address the council regarding matters which are not listed on the agenda will be required to sign up no later than 5 minutes prior to the scheduled starting time. The sign-in sheet contains space for the citizen's name, address, phone number, and topic to be discussed. In this way, city staff will be able to follow up on any issues presented if necessary. Under the Airport Authority, I have 3 citizens that have signed up to for discussion. Mr. Charlie Bachman of Durant. You're up, sir.
I would like to reserve my comments until after we've gone through all the administrative items and I know exactly what the plans are. I mean, you're asking me to put the cart in front of the horse a little bit. I know there's some question about the management change, or there's talk of change in the management at the airport. And if that's the case, I'd like to know why. But again, when we get through this information, then I'll have a little bit more information to speak intelligently. I can't speak of it intelligently right now because I don't know exactly what y'all are planning. Mm-hmm. You're asking me to comment on what you're planning when I don't know exactly what you're planning.
I guess we'll know when we vote, Mr. Bachman, but your time to speak is now, and there will be no time to recognize once we move from the citizen
I'll
comments.
make a simple comment then.
Pardon me?
I'll make a simple comment.
Okay.
The management at the airport has done a good job over a long period of time. They've shown consistency in doing the job and being there when they were needed. The airport has run financially stable. I don't see any reason for change, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Danny Craig. Dan, are you out there? Oh, there you are. Sorry, couldn't see you, sir.
Mr. Mayor, the reason I signed up is some of the things you're going to be voting on. I was wondering if any of the council members might have questions of me on those.
And Mr. Craig is the chairman of the Airport Advisory Board. Trustee members have any questions for Dr. Danny?
Okay.
Hi,
Hearing
Dr.
none.
Craig.
Okay,
How
go
are
ahead.
you? Dr. Craig, and I don't know what I can ask you, but are you,
I don't think this is the appropriate time under citizen comments for questions. I think if there's a question that Dr. Craig might
just here to
answer
answer if
during
they
one
have-
of the agenda items, I think that's appropriate as the chairman of the Airport Advisory Board, but just open questions during the citizen
Okay.
comment period, I'm not sure that that's appropriate. Well, I'm sure it's
Okay.
not appropriate.
The reason I signed up is in case that before they vote, if they had a question.
Sure, and I think that's appropriate during each agenda item if there's a question for the Airport Advisory Board chairperson.
Fair enough, sir. Will, unless you have a comment to make.
I have a personal comment.
Okay.
You're considering in item C, the request for proposal. Personally, I am happy with the current management. That's y'all's prerogative to request changes, but most of the people I have talked with have been happy. And so I just, we are happy. We really see no need for change, but that is a personal opinion, not the advisory board. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. And you'll be available for, okay, questions, okay. And Mr. Jim Thorpe, and his topic, I believe, is on the airport and proposed changes. Is Jim here? Yes,
I'm Jim Thorpe. I've been at the airport for probably at least 25 years with my airplanes. I've had a 140 and now I've got a 300. We're very, very satisfied with the mechanics and the way they run the airport. The last time this came up, we had lawyers and doctors and dentists and everyone in here, probably around 30 to 35 people, and every one of us are happy with that. It is very important that we have somebody like the ones we have now. We can trust these people, and there never has in the last 20 years. They got 17, 20 years experience. There has never been a plane that has been worked on by these people that has went up in the air 500 to 1,000 foot at the end of the runway and went down and killed anybody. There has never even been one go down. You look all over the country, and you look on the news, and you're always seeing these airplanes fall out of the sky. The reason they're falling out of the sky, most of the time, some of it is pilot error, but many times it's a mechanic that's working on that plane. And if he doesn't do it efficiently, this is not like your little car or your big car that you're driving down the road. And you have trouble with it, you can pull over, call a mechanic out and get it fixed. When you're coming out of that airport or you're landing, and that plane is not worked on by an excellent mechanic, you can't pull that thing over. When you get up 1,000 foot and you have nowhere to go, the only thing you can do is crash land. Same thing as when you're coming in. They have not had any of this problem in all the years they've been here. They have taken care of all the pilots, no accidents, and when it's not broke, why do you want to fix it? Why do you want to bring somebody else in here that maybe doesn't even have the expertise and the years of training that they do? These boys have always kept up in the air, and they're quality people. And all of us pilots are standing behind them. I don't understand why you want to fix something that's not broke.
Thank you, Mr. Thorpe. That concludes the number of folks that signed up to speak under the citizen comments. We'll move to item 4A under administration, and that is consider approval of a motion to file the Durant Airport Authority FY fiscal year 18-19 financial plan with the City Council as beneficiary. Tim, again.
Again, Mayor and City Council, this is simply a procedure that we do once a year because all the public trusts that fall in pursuant to Title 60 with Oklahoma State statutes, they have to file their annual financial plan or budget, and this is simply a requirement that we ask approval of.
Any questions for the city manager? Hearing none, do we have a motion?
Move to approve. Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, the secretary will record the vote, please.
Trustee Hawthorne,
Aye.
Trustee Groby,
Aye.
Trustee Dills,
Aye.
Vice Chairman Hitchcock,
Aye.
Chairman Tomlinson.
Aye, motion carries. Item 4B, consider approval of the airport management contract extension C-2018-24 between the Durant Airport Authority and DW Aviation. Mr. Marty Cook.
Yes, sir. I have a contract with DW Aviation, which is our current fixed base operator. As you've heard tonight, there's some discussion later about the possibility of request for proposal for a new fixed base operator. Whether that happens or not, we can still use this contract extension to extend his contract basically on a month-by-month basis until such time that we decide if there's going to be a new fixed base operator or not. If there is not, then we would come back and renew his contract next month as a full contract anyway.
And for me, I want to be clear. I don't have any issue with the contract extension. My question is not in that regard, but we won't decide. The proposal and the response and bid will decide who.
Sure.
And that may or may not be somebody new. Is that right?
That's absolutely right.
Okay. You've heard Marty's recommendation on the extension of the airport management contract. What's the pleasure?
I just have a quick question. Just looking at the last contract and this extension, I know it was brought up about airport issues and the hangar, and it was brought up whether or not that was a LLC formed. Is this the same way? I mean, or are we just doing a contract with an individual?
DW Aviation is the company. Dwayne Williams is the representative or owner of that company. I don't think he's here. I'm not sure if it's an LLC or what right offhand. It's the same contract that we've had
But
with
that-
him.
I'm sorry, that LLC I think had to do with
It was the big hangar lease. It was a different
Not
individual.
the FAA, it had to do with
Yeah,
some loan.
Hangar 10
some-
Aviation
some,
was a brand-new formed company by some of our current pilots that leased that big hangar.
But I would presume if we're talking about leasing out a hangar and we're wanting to make sure that it's an LLC, or we're not wanting to do the same thing with an FBO?
They don't have to be an LLC.
This is about the airport management contract
Yeah.
extension, we're not to the hangars yet.
Well, I mean, I think what he's saying is to have a contract with Hangar 10, we want them to be an LLC. But now we don't care if DW Aviation's an LLC?
We didn't want them to be an LLC, Chad.
Actually,
They-
you asked for them to be
They
an LLC.
said they were an LLC, and they were not. We looked it up, and they had not, and they said they were waiting to get this approval. Their attorney had told them to wait to get the approval before they formed the LLC. They were not an LLC, and you don't have to be one. But since they stated that they were one, they needed to either have the LLC papers, or either, which they did, they assured us that they would have the LLC formed after they were approved.
And they did, and I think they provided that documentation
Right.
when we voted, so. But I think the LLC has no bearing,
No.
no FAA requirements and/or authority requirements as far as the lease contract.
They're required within this contract to have certain insurance and certain requirements on theirself and the lease, the use of the hangars, the use of the terminal building and all that. I would think this is a subcontract with a company or a person or whatever it is. I don't know that it was required to have an LLC necessarily.
And that's what I was wanting to know.
We're using the same company name and proprietor name that were originally referenced in the original contract.
Marty, who made the determination? I thought we had a 5-year contract. Who made the determination that we would do it on a month-by-month basis?
Well, and again, that's because there was some interest in going out for a new RFP. So we want to leave him on this 5-year contract and then select somebody new to take his place in 4.5 years. You know, a couple years ago, and for the last couple years, we've been trying to get you the best deal, best bang for your buck, by bidding out stuff a little bit more often than we used to. And that's part of this. Plus, there's a lot of changes happening at the airport right now, and some of those you'll see tonight in some of the documents that I presented. And it's really a good time to not only, I mean, I don't care who wins the bid. It may be DW Aviation again, but it's a good time to readdress his contract, I think.
Well, the only concern I have is that the airport is a trust authority, and the advisory board, I don't know, did they vote to do this? They should be the ones that vote.
They have looked at the FBO or,
I mean, did they vote to
okay,
put this on?
that's a whole different item. This contract extension is something they were aware of, yes, but they did not vote to recommend or not recommend a contract extension. That's something we would take care of normally on our own.
Well, the only reason I ask.
Some of the other documents they have looked at and recommended or
Right.
not.
The only reason I ask is the airport authority is directly under the council. And it would seem that either the advisory and the attorney can give his opinion. But it seems like the advisory board, who are put there by the trustees, which is the city council, would have had to have said, we would like to extend this, or at least have known about it and then brought it before the council. Am I not wrong?
I'm trying to find it here.
Not on
Marty,
the
when that
contract.
contract up in January, from an annual,
I don't
up in
remember.
January, and we've been, I think, approving an extension prior to this. And I think
We did an extension last time.
considering that, till June the 30th. In consideration that potentially an RFP might be going out. So, I mean, that's my memory.
Mr. Mayor, I think we probably got the cart before the horse just a little bit in that it doesn't matter why this contract is expiring. The contract is expiring at the end of this month. So regardless of whether the council would take it up next month to renew DW Aviation's contract for another year, 5 years, 10 years, whatever it is, or whether they go out for RFP, it doesn't matter. This contract is expiring before the next council meeting. In order to keep it from expiring and keep an FBO operating at the airport, this council needs to extend this contract at least until it decides to do something else. So regardless of who reports to whom or whether the Airport Advisory Board recommends that the contract be extended on a month-to-month basis, it's going to expire in a couple of weeks.
We're just trying to keep it viable.
It needs to be extended to keep an operator out there.
Would it be appropriate if we made a motion to approve the contract and do it through the next meeting? I guess, or does it matter?
I think you wouldn't want to have to do this every single month, because even if when we go through the FBO process with an RFP, that may take months, and then whomever you select, whether it be DW Aviation or the new person, it may be a few months before they're able to take over operations immediately. So that's why.
You could potentially be in that every month for 6 months or so.
Am I not reading this correct where it says contract extension through the end of this month? So we're saying that it's going to
Expire at the end of June. So that's why we just want to go to a month-to-month.
So from July 1st through the 10th, whatever the day is, we're just not going to have a contract?
No, it will continue. It'll pick back up on the first day of July and continue on a month-by-month basis until such time as a new contract is agreed on. Look at the second bullet point.
Okay. I got you.
Okay.
Say, I hope I worded that right. That's what I intended.
Actually, my 4A is 4B over here. So, to be clear, city attorney is advising that a motion to, to consider approval of the airport management contract extension, if indeed is to the affirmative, would continue on a monthly, would automatically renew on a monthly basis until this authority takes other action. Is that fair to
Yes.
say?
It is. Until a new contract is awarded, whether it's awarded to DW Aviation or a successor, this would continue in perpetuity on a month-by-month basis.
Move to approve.
Have a motion? We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the contract extension agreement? Hearing none, the secretary record the vote, please.
Trustee Hawthorne,
Aye.
Trustee Groby, Trustee Dills,
Aye.
Vice Chairman Hitchcock,
No.
Chairman Tomlinson.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, so we've done A and B. Is my C? Yeah, okay. Item 4C is consider approval of the request for a proposal, an RFP document, to initiate the solicitation process for fixed-based operator FBO services at the Durant Regional Airport, Eaker Field. Got more technical difficulty, I think. Back online. Okay, let's see. Get back
C.
where we were, I believe, item
C.
4C. And that is to consider approval of the request for proposal, an RFP document, to initiate the solicitation process for fixed-based operator FBO services at the Durant Regional Airport, Eaker Field. Mr. Marty?
And with your technical difficulties, I have some as well. Evidently, nothing that I printed for supporting documentation came off. So I'm going to be reading from the screen. It is all present. We had KSA Engineering do a market assessment for us and help us to prepare a proper RFP to go out for bid for a fixed-based operator for our Durant Regional Airport. This is the one we've been talking about, and so really this is the front and center for management of the airport, and the schedule that you see on here on both the memo page and the last page of the RFP are proposed schedule, barring some unforeseen consequences. That is as quick as this can take place. I will not get anybody in here any quicker than that, I promise, just because of the timelines we have to have. So you're looking at September 11th at a very minimum to approve anybody to be an FBO, whether that's DW Aviation or a new contractor. This request for proposal, however, if you approve, we would make the arrangements to start getting the information out as quickly as possible.
Naturally, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
I don't understand, well, the company that, the KSA, whoever, the fellow told us last month he did not talk to the FBO, nor did he talk to the advisory board.
Okay.
So he didn't talk to any of those people. The way I understand it, and maybe I'm oversimplifying it, but I was under the impression that the airport is a trust authority and that the board, the advisory board, makes the decisions, yay and nay, and then they come before the council. The council can either overrule them or they can agree with them.
And they come to the airport authority, first of all, not the council, because you're sitting on the airport authority board right now, right? So the airport advisory board is a volunteer group, and they're not elected, or there's a few appointments on there, I think, but I don't think they have proprietary information that is required to get information to you. In the past, that advisory board has not been used near often enough, to be honest. And I have taken everything you're going to see tonight and placed it in front of them. They did not recommend nor not recommend this RFP, but the ones that were present at our last meeting, which includes Michael Mitchell of KSA, have all seen this. I've had some feedback from some of them, and we've made some adjustments. But for the most part, they are all aware of what's going on. Now, you're right, they did not vote to recommend it because we didn't know it was going to be, if we were going to have all the data ready at the time for their meeting, to be honest. But they have seen it. The rest of the stuff you're going to see tonight, they actually voted to recommend. I'm trying to use them every step I can, okay?
Who voted to recommend, the advisory board or?
The advisory board has voted to recommend everything except the RFP.
Okay.
Again, because we didn't have that on the agenda to vote to. Now, they've all seen it, and they've had an option to look at it and give me feedback so that I could prepare it as this week got going, so we could get it locked in for your council meeting and your airport authority meeting.
I do want to clarify just a question that you had asked. The Airport Advisory Board is exactly that. They are advisory in nature only. They're advisory because they're made up of people that are very familiar with the airport, but they have no authority. They can discuss issues. I think Marty's right. At times the council has relied on them a great deal. At times they've been largely silent.
Yeah.
Maybe not of their own accord, but because the airport authority or the council didn't refer to them very often. But they are advisory in nature only, and their advice is not to be overruled by the airport authority or to be adopted by it. Is just for the airport authority to listen and take note of. They don't make decisions for you to overrule. They just give advice. So they don't have any authority necessarily. They are an advisory board.
And that's why we say they recommend or don't recommend. We don't say they approved or disapproved.
Well, then who came up with the idea to do a RFP and put out?
It was brought to me by city manager and some others that this was an interest. The contract was running out currently. And again, we have a lot of changes happening. We're trying to get the best bang for our buck at the airport as well, just like the city. So we want to make sure we're paying the right amount, go out for bid like we would for any other project, any other engineer or something like that.
Marty, this would be the same as how we looked at an auditor, right? I mean, we go out for bid, see if there's anybody qualified.
Yeah,
I mean,
now
it's
you're
kind of the
talking about
same-
budget, and that's not me.
Well,
but
I mean,
you're
but it's
right.
kind of the
It's
same-
a contractor.
I mean,
It's a
it's the same
contractor.
thing.
The only difference, Chad, would be that on our,
I just meant the process is the same.
right, what do you call this thing? On our organizational chart, the airport authority is directly under the city council only.
We're sitting on the airport authority right now.
Right.
Yeah.
But he
And-
said Tim's the one that was recommending the RFP.
Tim is my boss. I
Right,
don't take orders from.
I understand that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so when he comes to me and says there's interest in an RFP for FBO, I'm just looking for the best deal.
Right.
Right,
I
so-
understand that, but it seems
And
like.
I'm not trying to blame this on Tim. It's not all him.
I'm
But
not blaming it on anybody. I'm just saying it seems to me like that someone from the council or from the advisory board should have been the one
Correct.
to make that
That's-
decision.
But you
So
can't
I am
give me
on the
direction. That's
advisory
what
board, and a lot is me talking to Tim saying, hey, we should probably look at this and make sure we're up to par with all the regional airports, make sure we're offering the same thing Ardmore's offering, make sure we're offering the same thing Ada's offering. So a lot of it came from me saying, hey, we should look into this.
Okay, so it's your idea then, Chad, to
Well, I
put
don't
out.
necessarily know that I'm out there telling Tim what to do,
if
but
I
I
could,
said
I think we need to
probably
clear
look
up
into this.
maybe the role of the city manager here. The city manager manages not only the city, the utilities authority, and the airport authority.
Then we need to redo this organizational chart.
And, well,
If it's not correct, then.
Oh, what I was saying is it's no different than when you sent an email out saying, hey, we should look into other auditors. It's exactly the same process. I said, hey, should look into this. That was kind of the gist of what happened right there. That's where it came from, though.
Just for clarification, did the council approve the contract with KSA?
Yes.
And
And
we discussed at length that part of what that contract was going to be.
Yeah, it was
is-
always a piece of that
And
contract.
there was about 4 segments of the KSA contract that was approved last fall, and one of the segments was going out and creating an RFP for an FBO. So
that
this is not,
we voted on.
you voted on that back in last fall sometime, I think, or maybe early this year.
And it wasn't council, it was airport authority. So
Yeah,
we're clear.
yeah,
Thank you.
This airport authority that's sitting here right now voted to hire a company to go out and create an RFP to present to you, as we're doing tonight, to submit, if approved, to go out, advertise, and go out for the RFP for an FBO. You're correct.
Do you know the last time that we've done this, sent out an RFP?
The winter of 16, because his last contract was based on the selection committee and what he received when he signed his contract in January of 17.
So at least 2 years ago.
Yeah. And it will be for sure before we get it all. Yeah.
As we talk about the proposal, I just want to bring up one other thing. It's been brought up several times in the winter of 16 and now. The FBO has nothing to do with the mechanics, is that correct?
I would assume anybody with FBO would hire and/or have access to their mechanics, or they may hire the mechanics that are already out there. They may bring their own.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't have any control over that. Our dealing is with DW Aviation, and that is Dwayne, from what I understand. And then his mechanics and his front desk operator and those people kind of work in his subcontract. You know?
Basically what I'm saying is the mechanics are a different entity than an FBO.
Yeah, and we don't hire the mechanics anyway.
Exactly.
They do. They provide those.
I just wanted to make sure that was clear, that we're not, trying to change mechanics or anything.
And if you look at the optional services that say they may provide the following, which is
Yeah.
repair. And so that doesn't necessarily mean they will.
But if the new FBO did not, somebody would provide mechanics.
I bet we can find out.
Yeah.
Marty, if I can just ask one more question just for clarification. You were saying that the advisory board didn't vote to approve this. Did they vote on it at all, whether in
No,
favor
they-
or not? It's
that's
just-
what I'm gonna tell
it was
you.
Never considered.
It was not considered for recommendation. It was information only. I gave them a copy of it, the 5 that were present. We let them take it home, study it. Some of them gave me feedback, which I went back in and altered. Mostly it was grammatical type stuff. But we listened to the ones that had the opportunity to see it. But they did not recognize it for recommendation or non.
So there's never a vote?
No,
either
no.
in
It
favor
was
or
never going to
against?
be a vote on that, no. Like I said, it was primarily informational.
Well, Marty, it seems the people that are out, based on what we've heard, the pilots or the advisory board, the people that are out there are happy with the way it's run out there.
And to be honest, some of them are, and some of them are not, because they've called me as well. So there's 48 hangars and probably more than that, people that actually fly. I don't like to take a group and say all of them said this, because they have their own voice. They're always welcome to come up here, and when you pick a new FBO and that comes back before you, I would guess we're going to get some input. I would also want to say I'm going to try to make sure the advisory board has a place on the selection process to help us identify, and let's use them for their expertise. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to pick the winner, because that is always the airport authority's job, but they're going to have some input along the way, for sure.
Marty, just because we're going out for RFP doesn't mean DW Aviation cannot, they can submit a bid,
Oh,
correct?
they will submit a bid,
Okay,
absolutely.
I just want to make sure
Yeah.
that we know that we're not just.
I hope they do, to be
Yeah.
honest.
I'm presuming from just the presentation that's put on by KSA and what I was able to read from this proposal is this increases the quality of services at the airport.
Yeah,
Are
and
there
that's
people
always the
that are
hope.
against in-
We
increasing
always want to try to
improvement?
increase the quality, the efficiency, and also manage that in a way that doesn't cost us extra money. There's negotiation on both sides. We're going to do the best we can to provide the perfect service for you, honestly, for free. You know that's not the way it works. But that's part of the negotiation. That's part of the proposal. They're going to tell us what services they can provide and what they expect to get out of that, and we're going to have to make a decision, sometimes a tough decision. based on what is submitted to us and what it looks like is going to grant us the best chance for growth at our newly expanding regional airport, because we're kind of lined up. This next year is going to be some construction, and we're lined up to get pretty big, we hope.
Well, and I think that's something that everybody needs to recognize is I'm not a pilot. I don't have a plane out there, but that airport benefits me as a citizen. So I'm not
Absolutely.
trying to do what benefits the pilots. I'm trying to do what benefits everybody that lives in the community and around us.
Now, I would tell you to listen to the pilots. They are the users. They know what happens on a day-to-day basis, but
Right.
listen to all of them. That's what I would say.
Well, as a last remark, I will say this. I've been on the council a year, and that is the airport is the only place I have never had a complaint on.
Perfect.
I've had complaints on lots of other places, but never had a complaint on the airport, for what that's worth.
Any other questions for Marty regarding the RFP solicitation process?
Mr. Mayor, is there any way that we could postpone this until the advisory board meets and they have some input, or is that not feasible?
They were presented this on June 4th, this RFP, and then, as Marty stated, they had some tweaks and changes, and they sent that to him, in which he changed.
They didn't vote on it, but they have seen it. The advisory board committees that were present and everybody else that was in the room, to be honest, there was some extra people there as well.
I think Marty is, as the Public Works Director and the City Manager here this evening, recommending consideration for this, and I think it's incumbent upon us to decide whether or not to or not. So are we out of time for a motion?
Move to approve. Second.
We have a motion and we have a second to consider the approval of a request for proposal RFP to initiate the solicitation process for fixed-based operator FBO services at the Durant Regional Airport. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Secretary will record the vote, please.
Trustee Hawthorne,
Aye.
Trustee Groby,
No.
Trustee Dills, Vice Chairman Hitchcock,
Aye.
Chairman Tomlinson,
Aye. Motion carries. Item number 4D, consider approval of new airport rules and regulations document for leasee operations and appropriate use of hangars at the Durant Regional Airport, Eaker Field. Marty?
So again, in a part of our grant assurance process with the FAA, they would like us to have rules and regulations to show safe usage of hangars and airplanes and fuel and all that kind of stuff around our airport. We partnered again with KSA. This is one of the other parts that they gave us for the investment that we made. This is a rules and regulations sheet that is recommended by the FAA and approved by the OAC, which is Oklahoma Aeronautics Commission. And then again, the Airport Advisory Board did see this and recommend approval, actually voted to recommend approval on this document. This something would be published on our website, would be published in the annual, and it would be also handed out to anybody that signs a new lease agreement, probably a couple on the shelf at the airport so you could pick them up and read them in your spare time. Several pages, mostly aviation related. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions for Marty?
I expect this document will get tweaked in the next year or so. We'll find some things in it that maybe need to change or whatever. It's a beginning document for sure, but it's we've gone through it pretty good, and I think we're pretty comfortable at the moment.
We actually don't have one of these in place, is that right?
No, at least not a published document that's been officially recognized by the airport authority and placed out there. That's one of the you get brownie points for some of these safety procedures being published. So.
With the FAA?
Yeah, absolutely. And part of their grant assurance process is we're living up our end of the bargain, so they'll help keep giving us money. So we like that. This is a simple fix to make sure we stay compliant.
Well, and this gives some expectations and some enforcement guidelines. Just-
Absolutely. So now when we see something that we obviously know is wrong, we can point back to, item, I don't know, and say, you got one of these, you read this when you got your lease, now you've violated this, and gives us a little bit more bite in our program.
Authority members have any other questions for Marty? Do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the secretary will record the vote, please.
Trustee Hawthorne,
Aye.
Trustee Groby,
Aye.
Trustee Dills, Vice Chairman Hitchcock,
Aye.
Chairman Tomlinson.
Aye, motion carries. We are at 4E, under administration of the Airport Authority. Consider approval of a new lease agreement format for developed hangar leases at the Durant Regional Airport, Eaker Field. Marty?
So, and the last piece, I think we've talked about, well, not quite. Anyway, another piece that KSA has helped us to develop is a lease agreement. Again, this comes recognized by the Oklahoma Aeronautics Commission. It's quite a bit more comprehensive than what we've had in the past, like 25 pages more comprehensive. And I think our attorney will agree, it does absolutely line out recommendations for any known circumstance to man, including, the military taking over our airport for military uses, or asteroids falling from the sky, or all kinds of stuff are kind of outlined in this. But it presents us, again, with the ability to not only track and trace where they're at and how much they're paying, but they're signing a set of regulations here that allows us to have some enforcement. Maybe we can make sure that the hangars are being used properly and that they're minding their manners on the course. This is recommended and voted on by the Durant Airport Advisory Board as well. They did recommend this.
Marty, this is just a little bit off track here, but
Okay.
you keep referring to KSA,
Mhm.
and I read the report. It's a big old
Yep.
thick report. I could not find anybody's name anywhere in that report, and there was not a business card attached to it. Can you tell us who KSA is?
Well, KSA is a company name.
Right.
KSA Engineering, the gentleman that I am dealing with is Michael Mitchell. And he is and we had another gentleman, Tim, I don't remember his name, but Michael has been our primary.
Is he local?
He is. He actually lives down somewhere south of Clara, I think. I don't know if that matters, but.
Authority members have any other questions or discussion regarding 4E? Not entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, secretary will record the vote, please.
Trustee Hawthorne,
Aye.
Trustee Groby,
Aye.
Trustee Dills,
Aye.
Vice Chairman Hitchcock,
Aye.
Chairman Tomlinson.
Aye, motion carries. Item 4F, consider approval of a new lease rate plan to implement at Durant Regional Airport, Eaker Field. Marty again?
So I told you tonight it was going to be airport night. When we had the market assessment done, we all realized that our leases are a little bit under the market value. And so we've put together a package, and this is a letter from me to you guys just describing what I've done. If you'll go to the next attachment there. Yeah. So this page shows the actual amount of a hangar per square foot for the different areas that they surveyed. And this was a part of that KSA market assessment that we handed out some months ago in the big thick book. If you'll go to page 2, Byron, I have put together a spreadsheet. Is there a page 2?
Yeah, I've got it. Just scroll down.
Scroll down. There you go. And it's sideways. This is a spreadsheet. It shows our original lease payments for each hangar, identified by building and hangar number, the actual square footage, and the actual cost right now to rent those hangars. The next line is, the next column is the blue column, is the difference in that line and the target rent for those hangars. And then without getting too complicated, I took this out to a 3-year increase, once a year for 3 years, with an added increase of 3.5% just for inflation and whatnot. And the prices that you'll see per hanger on the very far right is in 6 years with just a normal price increase. And that would get us back into market value within 3 years. And then in 6, we would just continue that trend each year, making sure to adjust for regular inflation. The bottom, if you'll scroll down on that, Byron, a little bit and show where the totals are at, I can show you that just that money in the blue where you see the box around says $66,678. That's the money we're not receiving yearly right now because our leases are that much under the market value. Now, I did take this to the Airport Advisory Board. I did show them that, and they had a chance to look at this. We discussed it, assuring them, because it is exactly the truth, that any money that comes in through this lease program would be spent then again back at the airport, and it would be ended up being put into hangars and aprons and all those things that need addressed out there. They have recommended approval of this increased payment plan to get us back into a market value arena. I would work with City Clerk probably to finalize these numbers in a way that she can keep track of for many years so that we don't lose the plan. I think last time we had a rate increase, we decided to increase and we were going to do some more. Kind of fell through the tracks and nobody ever did that second or third increase. Well, we want to put this in place as a plan approved by the airport authority so that we can stay on track for the next 6 or 7 years and make sure that we stay in the right market. Again, our grant assurances from the FAA, if we're not making the money we can make and spending that back at the airport, they're less apt to want to give us money from the federal government. So we can't just have the cheapest rate around and expect to keep getting grants. So part of that is being markedly responsible for what we have out there and making sure that our rates look reasonable. I would entertain any questions. It's a lot of math. It's all I can pencil in my spreadsheet, one number, and it changes the whole thing. But I hope you understand it.
Are we just considering the first 3 years on this?
To be honest, the plan as I show it there is 6, and the last 3 are just a 3.5% increase each year, just kind of just an annual increase. The first 3 are the important ones. That gets us back in the market. But if we stop there, then we're going to be behind in 3 more years, right? We haven't continued to increase.
And I certainly agree with trying to get back to what the market rate is. But
Now remember, this
only
can always be adjusted again as well.
Yeah, and that's
So-
we don't want to get way above the market
Sure,
rate.
absolutely,
So-
absolutely.
And part of my question is, okay, so for the first 3 years, the 3.5% is not in place, right?
No, it is. You're going to have an increase of 1/3 of the difference plus 3.5%, year 2 and year 3. If you look at the numbers up top in the green, blue, and pink, you got a $60 increase the first year, a $62 the second year, and a $65 the third year. That's because there's an extra 3.5% on top of that $60 each year.
That's reflected in that, or?
Yes.
I don't know,
I reflected the percentage increase plus the 3 years divided out so that it's not all at one time. And so 391 would be your new total, and then 458. Hope I'm reading that right from this distance. Does that make sense? I really didn't know a better way to show this, Mr. Mayor. I hope that this works.
Oh, I need to get it here, but it's sideways on me.
Any more questions?
I do have a question, and it kind of relates to something earlier. So we're going to make this change. What if we go with an FBO that wants to have control of all the hangars?
We're not going to do that because we make money on the hangars.
Okay, that's what I need to know. I just want to make
That'd
sure.
be dumb to give up our cash cow.
Yeah,
you know,
I
so.
understand. I mean, but I just want to make sure.
I don't know if it's actually on this page. It's on the letter that I wrote. I would propose to start these January 1 of 19, It gives us some time to contact everybody, break the news to them. It also keeps it in a normal yearly rate, which kind of tends to help the normal person, so. The proposal in the letter does say that to propose to begin this January of 19. They recommended approval of this, yes, ma'am. I think they recognize that the increase in funds will be spent back at the hangars and the aprons that they all use, and that's a benefit to everybody.
Marty, let me just, maybe it's really just a question and something for discussion, but Member Hitchcock asked about if an FBO operator wanted the hangars. That would be doable down the road if this body decided to let a fixed base operator operate the hangars.
Yeah, and I might not, should have said they can't.
Right. It would still be something that
Sure.
could be considered later as long as it was financially feasible for the airport. So this is not to say that they couldn't operate the hangars, but that it would have to be considered later.
Sure.
Is that right?
It probably wouldn't make financial sense, but we'll discuss that when the time comes.
Any other questions for Marty regarding the lease rate plan? What's the authority's pleasure?
Move to approve.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion, questions? Hearing none, Secretary will record the vote, please.
Trustee Hawthorne,
Aye.
Trustee Groby,
Aye.
Trustee Dills, Vice Chairman Hitchcock,
Aye.
Chairman Tomlinson,
Aye, motion carries. Item 4G, consider approval of a request for authorization to purchase RFAP number 2018-177 for $325,000 for land surrounding the Durant Regional Airport. Marty, you're up on that again, I think?
Hopefully the last one for a minute. So with our runway extension that you all are well aware of, there's some property surrounding the airport that we need to purchase. And it's come time to do that. We have already had a pre-bid conference for construction at the airport last week. The design is finished for the airport runway extension. We will be awarded the final grant, and construction costs will be known probably within the month. So it's time for us to finalize this piece. Now, in the purchase of this land, obviously Mr. Markham has been a big part of this. We had appraisals performed on each of the properties, and that's where we started with our sales process or our purchase process to try to buy them at the appraised valued rate. I'm not sure where to go from there. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Maybe Tom has to answer some, but what can I do for you on that?
Well, I think for me, one of the most important questions is that this was in the budget. This was in our
And we had some money located in the budget of the airport already. You will see a budget amendment in a little bit in the council meeting to help supplement this item, and that would be at your discretion as a council member. But at this point, and at this point, we would approve this contingent, that item as well.
That's right, Marty.
So-
Because the money is not completely there and it would take a budget amendment approved by the council, to the extent that a motion is made to recommend this or to approve this G, I would recommend that that motion be made contingent upon, or approvals contingent upon approval of the budget amendment by the council.
Again, until we got the appraisals, we really didn't know how much to set aside. And so after negotiating with the FAA and determining exactly what we did need, and then getting the appraisals and taking care of that process. The appraisals themselves are going to be something we've eaten with the airport budget. Actually, the money we spend on this can be used as collateral basically to a future grant from the FAA. And so this will benefit us another time in the future, any money that we spend on these purchases. But there is the capital outlay immediately for this property.
just by way of maybe updating the authority regarding the acquisition of the property needed to accomplish the runway extension. There's one small piece on the north side of the north end of the runway. It's about 1.7 acres, and then there's four parcels at the south end that comprise sort of one big parcel. There are two property owners that we have reached tentative agreements with based on the appraisals that we received. One has tentatively accepted the appraisal amount as the purchase price. One of the landowners was in a little bit of a unique position in that he had I don't know if he'd refinanced his property recently or for whatever purpose, he had an appraisal done that was unrelated to this, and it was just about 2 months ago. So our appraisal came in at a certain amount, which frankly I thought was a little high. I thought all these were maybe a little higher than expected, but they were consistent. And it sort of made me feel more comfortable when he presented the appraisal that he had just had done a couple of months ago, and it was very, very similar to ours. It was a different appraiser. It was for a different purpose, but his appraisal was very similar to ours. His appraisal contemplated a structure that was on the property, so it made his appraisal a little bit more, but it was approximately the value of the structure. So he has tentatively agreed to sell his property for his appraised value, which was basically our appraised value plus the value of that structure.
Yeah.
So that we've got two out of the way. One of them I'm fairly confident is going to happen. The other two we just don't have any information back on, and we're probably going to have to file condemnation suits on those two. One of them is the biggest parcel of property, but based on the appraisals that we received and seeing another appraisal that was done very recently by a different appraiser, I'm confident our values are real close to what they need to be, and fair for the landowners.
Any more questions or comments from the authority members? If not, do we have a motion?
Move to approve RFP 2018-177 contingent upon City Council approving a budget amendment.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion, questions? Hearing none, the secretary will record the vote, please.
Trustee Hawthorne,
Aye.
Trustee Groby,
Aye.
Trustee Dills,
Aye.
Vice Chairman Hitchcock,
Aye.
Chairman Tomlinson.
Aye. Motion carries. Under information items, authority members wish any discussion on the report? Hearing none. Anything under new business? Hearing none, entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. The secretary will record the vote, please.
Trustee Hawthorne,
Aye.
Trustee Groby,
Aye.
Trustee Dills,
Aye.
Vice Chairman Hitchcock,
Aye.
Chairman Tomlinson.
Aye, we are adjourned out of the Airport Authority. Okay, we've conducted a special meeting. We've had our Utilities Authority meeting. We've had our Airport Authority meeting. Are we ready to open in the council regular meeting? Anybody need a break? Okay, hearing none. Byron, are you ready? Oh, we got it transferred over. Okay. Well, let the record show it's 7:20. I'll call to order the regular monthly meeting of the Durant City Council of June the 12th, 2018. I'll ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne,
Here.
Councilmember Groby,
Here.
Councilmember Dills,
Here.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock,
Here.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Here. For the record, all council members are present. We have a full quorum. We'll begin our order of business with the consent items docket. We have items 1A through J. Do council members have any to be removed for consideration under item number 2?
I would like H, please.
To H, okay. Are there any others? If not, entertain a motion to approve the consent docket.
Move to approve the remaining items.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne,
Aye.
Councilmember Groby,
Aye.
Councilmember Dills,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock,
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Aye, motion carries. Takes us to item 2H. Item 2H is consider approval of contract C-2018-27. I'm sorry. It's not the right one, is it? Is that the right one?
It's the Main Street.
What, did I pull the right one?
My deal over here is off again.
It's the Main Street.
Yeah, but I'm on. Oh, I'm under. I'm sorry. Sorry.
Give me heart palpitations over here.
Technology challenged, you know. 2H, consider approval of agreement between the Durant Main Street Board of Directors and the City of Durant fiscal year 2018-19, or take any other appropriate action. Vice Mayor Hitchcock, you had a question. Or
Pretty
discussion.
easy. I don't think we should decrease funding for a program that's been as successful as the Durant Main Street has been. So I was just wondering if it'd be possible, instead of taking the $4,000 incentive out, if we could just add that into their funding and make it $30,000.
Sure.
Is that budget-wise going to be a problem?
No.
No
Nope.
issue? Okay.
Do we have a motion?
Move to approve agreement between the Durant Main Street Board of Directors and the City of Durant fiscal year 2018-19 in an amount of $30,000.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne,
Aye.
Councilmember Groby,
Aye.
Councilmember Dills,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock,
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Aye, motion carries. I just now see Stephanie out there, but I think, yeah. I think the entire council echoes Vice Mayor's comments, brief comments. Our Main Street program is, we feel like second to none, Stephanie, and appreciate what you do. And our downtown Main Street is the heartbeat of our city, and you've kept it alive. You and your members and what you do. So thank you for that. We're happy to be a part of it. Thank you, Vice Mayor. Okay, that takes us to item number 3 under administration. And we have 2 or 3 kind of formality things here again. Item 3A, consider approval of a motion to accept the filing of the Durant Industrial Authority fiscal year 18-19 financial plan. Tim, you want to, they approved their
Budget.
budget to file with us, the preliminary plan, as is required.
And this is what we're required to do each year.
And yeah,
Yes.
as city manager said, we're required to do this every year.
Move to approve?
Motion,
Second.
second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne,
Aye.
Councilmember Groby,
Aye.
Councilmember Dills,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock,
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Aye, motion carries. Item 3B, consider approval of motion to accept the filing of the Durant Community Facilities Authority fiscal year 18-19 financial plan. The DCFA met just recently and voted and approved the filing of that. Is there a motion, please?
Move to approve?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne,
Aye.
Councilmember Groby,
Aye.
Councilmember Dills, Vice Mayor Hitchcock,
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Aye, motion carries. Item 3C, consider approval of Resolution 2018-16, adopting proposed budget for fiscal year 2018-19. Okay, so this is for a budget discussion, is that correct?
Mayor, we actually need to hold the public hearing prior to
Okay,
identifying
Okay,
the resolution, so
okay,
if we
hang
can,
on, hang on. Okay,
to stay in compliance with state statute, we have to have a
Okay.
public hearing prior to council
so
actually considering
we
or.
won't will we come back to that?
Yes.
Or will it be under public hearing?
If you want
After
to
public
skip this item, we can address the public hearing and then come back to this item, or we can skip to the public hearing now and then come back and address this item. I mean, it's the pleasure of the
Do you want
council.
to consider all the public hearing agenda items?
Yep. It might just be easier to skip it and kind of get through everything and then come back for the budget.
Okay, so 3C will, if there's no objections, we'll delay.
Till after the
consideration
public hearing.
Till after the public hearing. Okay. Okay,
Just trying to keep us
so we'll pick
procedurally
up with
accurate.
3D.
Thank you.
Thank you, Greg, sorry. Consider recommendation of the Oklahoma Municipal Group, let's see, OMAG to deny a tort claim. Cindy, are you up on that?
I was thinking. Okay, this tort claim involved a citizen that was entering an intersection as a fire truck was approaching the intersection to cross it, and it was on a run, and the driver stated within her claim that she did hear the sirens and started to slow down, and then she made a decision that maybe she could get out of the way in time, and so she accelerated and went on through, or attempted to go on through the intersection, and the fire truck did strike her. It is the opinion of, on the city side, that once the driver made the determination to proceed on through the intersection, that constituted a failure to yield. When it was reviewed by OMAG, they recommended denial of the claim, and that each pay their own damages.
Does everybody see the email letter, I think, to Cindy?
Okay, and the fire chief joins us here as well, if you have any questions for him, but.
Council members have any questions for the chief or for Cindy?
And I've attached the file in its entirety to this agenda item.
OMAG is recommending denial, that the fire truck and the city were not at fault. Any questions for the chief? Any questions for Cindy? If not, do we have a motion? Do we have a motion? I move we follow the recommendation of the Oklahoma Municipal Assurance Group to deny the tort claim. Is there a second?
Second.
And a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne,
Aye.
Councilmember Groby,
Aye.
Councilmember Dills,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock.
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Aye, motion carries. Item 3E is to consider award of bid for janitorial services. Mr. Marty Pope?
This is a bid that we go out for every 3 years. This year in the pre-bid meeting, we had a lot of companies that come out. I believe we had 9 that went all the way from Tulsa to Dallas. We had one company, a local company, that was the lowest bid. Miss Betty, who has done our cleaning for the last 3 years, she didn't put a bid in this year. She felt that it was a little bit too much for her to take care of all the buildings, and she has done an exceptional job. Cherry Cleaning Services out of Caddo had the lowest bid. My recommendation is to go with them. You have some letters from a few companies here in town that they clean for, CMC, Indian Nation Wholesale. So I mean, they're represented well. So my recommendation is to go with them.
You've heard Marty's recommendation. Any questions?
You said we go out for this every 3 years?
Every 3 years.
What's council's pleasure?
Move to approve.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Follow Mr. Marty Pope's recommendation on Cherry Cleaning Solutions. Any further discussion?
I was just trying to make sure I understood on the agenda item. We're approving the bids or the RFP? Or is it?
We're awarding the bid.
Award of bid.
Okay, just want to make sure I understood correctly.
Any other comments, questions, discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne,
Aye.
Councilmember Groby.
Aye.
Councilmember Dills.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock.
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Aye, motion carries. Now, I got a question. We got the RFAP, and is it
It's
a
Part
like a
B.
E1 or E2? Okay. Under item 3E, we have a second part, and that is to consider approval of a request for authorization to purchase for Cherry Cleaning Solutions in the amount of $71,156, RFAP number 2018-170.
Move to approve.
Motion?
Second.
Second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne,
Aye.
Councilmember Groby.
Aye.
Councilmember Dills.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock.
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Aye, motion carries. Third part of this is is F, 3F. Consider approval of 2018 janitorial services contract C-2018-25. That's the contract, right?
Yes, sir.
With Miss Cherry Cleaning. Do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne,
Aye.
Councilmember Groby.
Aye.
Councilmember Dills.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock.
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Aye, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marty. Thank you. Good job. Takes us to 3G. Consider approval of service agreement with Crawford and Associate for accounting and consulting services C-2018-26. Who's up on that? Is that Greg? Or
Greg?
Apologize. I wasn't paying attention to the agenda. This is the Crawford and Associates is our accounting services that does our year-end bookkeeping to help us ensure that we use our year-end closeout. It's going to be specifically critical this year to assist in our year-end closeout since we don't have a full-time city treasurer and manager. They have continued to be on site and help us maintain our day-to-day bank reconciliations and services. So hopefully they'll be on top of this, so we'll be able to be prudent in our time constraints for year-end closeout. But Crawford's been our accounting services, consulting services. They're very familiar with our procedures, our program, and our bank reconciliation. We'd recommend approval.
Do we do this every year?
Yes, sir.
Have to do this one every year, okay.
I recall from last year, the way it's broken down with the hourly rates, is that how it's always been?
Mm-hmm.
Is it generally the same as it?
Yeah, there was not an increase or proposed increase from last year to this year, so it's the same.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne,
Aye.
Councilmember Groby,
Aye.
Councilmember Dills,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock.
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Aye, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Item under administration 3H, consider approval of contract C-2018-27 with Stahl Scott Fetzer Company for lease of a city building on Walden Drive. Mr. Marty?
I am back. This contract has been in place for several years now. They've been leasing this building on an annual basis. I believe that was actually their request in the beginning. The other half of the building they're leasing is on a 5-year lease anyway with another company and the trust company. So we just want to give them an option for a 5-year lease on this one. Part of the reason is they're requesting that because they're going to do some improvement to the structure, and they wanted to have some assurance they'd be able to continue to use it.
Questions for Marty? Stahl, they sublease to the trust company, don't they, or is that
No,
directly
they each have their own lease. Trust
Okay.
company has their own, and Stahl has their own.
with the city?
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
both with the city. It's a building located by the airport out there.
Yeah. Questions for Marty? If not, do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, clerk record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne,
Aye.
Councilmember Groby,
Aye.
Councilmember Dills,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock.
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Aye, motion carries. 3I. Consider approval of Resolution 2018-17, authorizing a mural project for S.J.'s Cruff. Is that you, Marty?
Actually, it's Matt with Community Development, but he's out tonight, so I'm going to be covering for him in a couple of cases. This is for a piece of property located at 1503 West Evergreen. If you're not familiar with it, it's behind First United Bank on 16th Street, right in that area. And it's going to have a mural on the south facing, so it would face Main Street across that parking lot from Main Street and visible from the roadway. There's a picture of the mural in here. You've done a couple of these in the last few months. The public seems to be going crazy over these. Maybe going to spark some interest to get more people walking around downtown. That was kind of the idea from the beginning. So be happy to answer any more questions you might have.
Do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Have-
Second.
Have two motions and a second.
Two motions
Should be
equals a
good.
second.
Any discussion? Hearing none.
We're in lockstep, Mike.
Clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne, Councilmember Groby?
Aye.
Councilmember Dills?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock?
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson?
Aye, motion carries. Takes us to item, excuse me, 3J. Consider approval of entering into a professional services agreement with Institute for Building Technology and Safety for for Community Development Services, fiscal year 2018-19. City Manager.
Mayor, Council, before you tonight is a renewal of a contract from IBTS. As most of you know, last fall, we had some changes within the organization that created an opportunity for us to acquire their services for our community development director as well as our building official. As was said earlier, Matt Narstedt unfortunately couldn't be here. He had a vacation that he had booked over a year ago, and so we let him out of town for a little bit. But I do have Mike Maynor here tonight, who would be happy to answer any questions from IBTS. Saying that, the contract itself, as you probably have looked through it, not only is it going to provide services for our city planner and our building official, Steve Quaid, but it will also allow us to continue our comprehensive plan, which has not been updated since 2002. So we are long due for getting our comprehensive plan updated. Matt has been working on that. He's held, I believe, multiple meetings. He will continue to hold multiple meetings, and we're hoping to have a delivered product to this body by early 2019. And saying that, if you look at the services that he's going to be doing, I also included some recent awarding of contracts. The total contract for IBTS, I believe, was $211,000 for the year for all their services. Now, you have to keep in mind, they're replacing 2 employees, so it's not as if this is something on top of having those 2 employees here. This is in replacement of those 2 employees. Also, if you think of it in the perspective of having somebody here also doing our comprehensive plan, I put in 3 different examples. Recently, the city of Tahlequah spent $185,000 on their new comprehensive plan. The city of Claremore, $200,000. The city of Norman just hired a firm for $379,000 to do their comprehensive plan. So when you look at the scope of work that's going to be performed here, it's not just the services that Matt and Steve will be providing as full-time employees here via IBTS. And we also have to keep in mind with those individuals, we're not paying any. There's no pension, there's no health benefits, there's no other insurances that we have to pay. This is a contract for services for those 2 individuals to perform their full-time jobs as the community development director over planning and as our building official here. So at this time, I'll take any questions.
Council members have any questions for the city manager regarding recommendation to enter into a professional services agreement with IBTS for community development services for the fiscal year 2018-19.
Tim, I would just say that I have a problem spending $18,000 a month for 2 employees with the, I guess, the crunch. I don't want to say the city's broke, but with the crunch we're in right now.
I understand your concern. That does sound like quite a bit of money for 2 employees, but you're not just getting 2 employees. As I stated before, we're also going to get a final product of a comprehensive plan, which we were going to look into. As soon as I took this job in October of 16, one of the things I was approached with was updating the comprehensive plan. So we were going to be moving forward with that project as well. So when you look at the overall picture of what the services that they're providing, we're actually saving money in the fact that we're not having to pay for that comprehensive plan contract because it's built into this one. So and I understand your concerns. That does sound like quite a bit.
Tim, is there a date or a timeline that will be completed?
Matt has told me that he will continue to have the hearings or the comprehensive plan hearings and meetings throughout the next 6 months. And again, he's hoping to have us a delivered product by early 2019 for this body.
2019, and then it was 2002, and it hadn't been updated since then?
Yes, sir.
Mr. City Manager, Just maybe to clarify and give a sort of a apples to apples comparison, and I don't know the answer to this, what are employee costs to the city? If you're paying an employee X amount per month, what does the city spend on top of that for benefits, retirement, all of those things? So maybe there could be an
depends.
apples to apples comparison, because $9,000 per employee here, $18,000 a month sounds like a lot, but
When you actually look down to, and I met with Councilmember Gruby yesterday and kind of went over some of these figures. When you take an employee that we have, by the time you add the health insurance, the pension, and those things, depending on if they're union or non-union employees, they're different levels there. You're talking anywhere from 30 to 35% on top of their salaries of what you have to pay with all the FICA, the Social Security, the health insurance. When you add all those, what we call roll-ups, all the benefits that are added into that, that's it. If Marty and Marty were back in those positions and not in Public Works and the parks, you'd be spending, I'm going to guesstimate somewhere around 150, 160,000 already. So when you're looking at those figures, so you got 211, but you're at 160, it's a difference of about $50,000. So again, when you add in what we're going to be paying to have a comprehensive plan, there's definitely some savings there. So it's not as if we're paying this on top of having those employees there. This is in lieu of.
And those costs for the employees go up every year, insurance?
Yes, yeah, there's
taxes.
I haven't seen a time yet where pension benefits or health insurance or the taxes go down. We might have got a little bit of a break a couple months ago, but it was a small break.
Well, the cost of this went up to $1,000 from seven months ago when we approved it. $1,000 a month.
Council members have any other questions for Tim? Okay, so I do. Would this be a 1 year?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we would have some time after the presentation, probably of a comprehensive plan. We would still have a few months of a community development.
Yes, and if
director
you wanted to
and-
continue
and-
services, you could, or if you would
Right, and
or
begin
go a
it-
different direction.
Yeah, and begin implementation maybe of,
Yes.
okay. What's the pleasure of the council?
Move to approve.
Have a motion?
Second.
And a second? Any further discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne,
Aye.
Councilmember Groby,
Nay.
Councilmember Dills,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock,
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Aye, motion carries. Item 3K, consider approval of a request for authorization to purchase RFAP 2018-179 for engineering of the redesign of drainage for Heritage Crossing 2 in the amount of $16,147. Marty?
As you'll remember, a couple years ago, we had some issues with drainage in Heritage Crossing 1. As a deal we struck with Sunstar, J. Mock and Buddy Holder on the development of Heritage 2, we opted to allow them to do some drainage work for us in lieu of building permits and some of that. It's the MOU that this council approved at the time. Part of that MOU had in it the stipulation that the redesign of the drainage for Heritage 1, which is not their development, that we would cover the costs. They would install, make sure it's operable and functioning at that point. And that's what this is. This is the final part of that contract where we're paying for the engineering of the redesign of Heritage 1. And then again, they have put the infrastructure in place and are finishing that up as we speak.
So the city this is the city's bill.
Yeah, this is the city's bill. And it, to be honest, it comes to a point in numerical dollars that needs to come before council. So it's a RFAP.
Yep.
you basically approved the expenditure of it in the contract that you signed 2 years ago, so.
But the work that's been done out there so far, it seems like it's resolved the issue. I don't really hear.
It has resolved the issue where the water was coming in from the north. There are still some deficiencies in Heritage One, I will not say there are not, but the issue of all that water infiltrating and flooding on top of that have been absolutely resolved. Now, they're not completely done yet either in Heritage 2 or 3, so as that continues to develop and we get houses and sod and some of those things, we'll see some new items. We'll have to look at those as well, but the drainage system is in place,
And those
at
are-
least for this piece that we're,
I think from Overland to Carriage Point, just the way some of them are sloped, but that was unrelated to this.
that was absolutely unrelated. Yeah, that's backyard to backyard, kind of a property owner's issue. This is really going to be benefiting primarily those people that live north of Carriage Point is where it's going to be protected. And then because of that, it saves all those thousands of gallons of water from rolling in and going down Stagecoach and down Heritage Drive as well, so.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne,
Aye.
Councilmember Groby,
Aye.
Councilmember Dills, Vice Mayor Hitchcock,
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Aye, motion carries. Item 3L, consider approval of the renewal of the annual contract, excuse me, July 1, 2018 to June 30, 2019, between the City of Durant and Civic Ready for Mass Notification Services. Our good friend, Mr. James Dalton.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Appreciate your consideration on this matter. As you know, we have a mass notification that we can get out to our citizens by text, email, phone calls in the event of an emergency. This is the second year of a contract. There is no upcharge on this year, and I'd like to ask you to approve it if you would, and we continue with it. Civic Ready is a partner to Civic Plus. It also does our web service for the city, so it's compatible to do other things within the city as well. It is in the proposed budget for next year. So once that budget's approved, we'll come back with the RFP for you.
Any questions for Mr. Dalton? Not entertain a motion.
Move to approve. Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne,
Aye.
Councilmember Groby,
Aye.
Councilmember Dills, Vice Mayor Hitchcock,
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Aye, motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Dalton.
Thank you very much.
Good job. Everybody good? Okay. We are at item 3M. Miss Becca Collins.
That's okay.
2017 Community Development Block Grant, CDBG, Economic Development Infrastructure Finance Grant Award, 17166, CDBG ED 87, for water and wastewater infrastructure improvements, C-2018-17, benefiting Steel Fab Inc. facility to create new jobs at 446 Country Club Road. Now, do we need to go to number 1, or that's an FYI,
Yes, sir.
right?
Mhm.
Okay. And under M, we have 1 through 4. Item M1 is consideration to approve grant award contract 17166, CDBG-ED 87, modification contingent upon the Oklahoma Department of Commerce executing a modified contract for project funding period from 2 years to 3 years with a date change of April 2, 2018 through April 2, 2021, C-2018-17. Ms. Becca.
Okay.
When the grant was awarded in April, neither Department of Commerce or myself noticed that there was a typo in the date range. And so they have asked that we bring this to the council and approve it contingent upon Department of Commerce fully executing it. That is my request tonight, that you'd approve that.
Kind of a
please.
formality.
Yes, sir.
What's council's approval or pleasure?
Move to approve.
Right.
M1.
M1. Got a motion? Second. And a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne.
Aye.
Councilmember Groby.
Aye.
Councilmember Dills.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock.
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Aye, motion carries. Item M2, consideration to approve easements for water and wastewater infrastructure improvements related to 17166 CDBG-ED 87 C-2018-17 benefiting the Steel Fab Inc. project.
We were waiting on the easements, and they were delivered to my office yesterday, rolled up, but I thought it was just my copy, and then I was not supposed to deliver to Tom, so we didn't have them in time for the agenda. And so, Tom, I don't know that we could even approve this contingency, and because you haven't even looked at them.
No, I think we just need to place this on the next either special or regular agenda.
Okay.
Item M2 will take no action tonight.
Okay.
Item M3. Item M2 will be considered at a later date, right?
Mhm.
M3, consideration to approve modification for ordinance number 1854 relating to the Steel Fab Inc. job creations benefited by the Community Development Block Grant, Economic Development Infrastructure Finance, CDBG-ED, Award 17166, CDBG-ED 87, C-2018-17. Those in the audience might wonder why we have to read all this, but it identifies for the record the action we're taking should there ever be any question. Go ahead, Ms. Becca.
Okay. This ordinance was approved contingent upon some changes made, excuse me, in the May 8th agenda. And after talking to Tom, we just decided to be best to put it on as a modification for the document. So it had a special council meeting listed, and it was changed to regular with the date, as well as adding in the declaring an emergency phrase. Is that correct, Tom? Okay. So just approval for the modification of this ordinance, please.
Move to approve ordinance 1854, sections 1 and 2.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne.
Aye.
Councilmember Groby.
Aye.
Councilmember Dills.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock.
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Aye, motion carries. Item 3-4, I'm sorry. Did we
Move.
emergency? I'm sorry.
Move to approve section 3.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve section 3. Any further discussion? Hearing none, clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne.
Aye.
Councilmember Groby.
Aye.
Councilmember Dills.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock.
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Aye, motion carries. Item 3M4. Consideration to approve modification for the statement of compliance to ensure compliance with specific grant award conditions relating to the Community Development Block Grant, Economic Development Infrastructure Finance, CDBG-ED, Award 17166, CDBG-ED 87, C-2018-17.
In a perfect world, had the easements been on here, then we could have asked for your approval with everything in place. But again, we're going to have to ask for this contingent upon the easements being approved. So should we just roll it to the special meeting along with the easements approval?
I think I would. I think it'd be appropriate either way. We could either adopt this tonight contingent upon future adoption of the easements. I think for clarity, it would probably be best to move them both to a future agenda, adopt the easements, and then adopt this as sort of a comprehensive.
I agree, and both
I
have to.
believe we're going to be having a special meeting next Thursday.
Okay, yeah, because we cannot achieve release of funds until we have both of those in
So
place.
for the record, M4 there'll be no action this evening. M4 to be considered at a special council meeting.
Yes,
Okay.
and that's it.
In the interest, okay, thank you, Ms. Beck.
Thank you.
I think that is it. Very quickly, I think we'll go to item 5 under information items. Any council members have any requests from department heads regarding their monthly reports? Any department heads out there that would like to make a presentation, have anything special, extra special going on? I know the library's awful busy, Robbie, doing some really good things. Thank you for that. Albert stays busy. Kenny stays busy. James stays busy. Ray stays busy. Marty stays busy. Jerry stays busy. We keep Marty busy. Any council members have any reports they'd like to? Okay, or any questions? Thank you all for what you do, by the way. You too, Chief Hauser. Okay, I know we're running somewhat long. Would we like a very short break? 5 minutes. We're going to be on the timer. Turn the timer on. 5-minute quick break, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
They came over the house the other day.
Well, who knows? Hey. Are we ready? Okay, I think our 5 minutes is up. Ms. Cindy, you ready? Byron, you ready? I think we didn't have any motions or anything to go out of session, so we'll just pick right back up in regular session. And we have worked our way through our agenda to item number 4 under public hearings. And item 4A is to consider approval of PC 2018-08, a preliminary plat for property located on the west side of South 15th Avenue between West Georgia Street and Byers Avenue. Mr. Marty Cook is here instead of Matt. Mr. Marty?
Yes, sir. Good to see you again. I told you I'd be back. So this is a 9.3 acre piece of property that is currently undeveloped off South 15th Street, and it is abuts some city property on the far west, but it's going to be in its own right subdivision. It's R3, but it will be single family homes. He's not going to do multifamily homes. And one of the interesting things we're looking at with this one is because of the uniqueness of the design, there was only one way out. Our code requires a second way out. And so if you look in the top right-hand corner of the plat that's on your screen there, it shows a 20-foot easement diagonally back up and then out to 15th Street. And that would be an emergency egress for fire and police in case something happened on the primary entry and egress road. That would just be an emergency egress route. Everything else would be primary roads. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to help you.
Well, I'm sorry, Marty, that reminds me of a small development out here on North First that only had one way in, and they required another emergency entrance
On occasion,
to
we
exit,
reach that in the code.
and they did that. Not similar to that, but they did that totally behind one
Mhm.
row of the home, so that's not
The
uncommon.
rule is if it's over 500 feet deep, you have to have a second way out.
Yeah.
And so whatever the design, whether that be a straight cul-de-sac or a boxed area like this or what. So by being as deep as it is, it requires a second way out for emergency vehicles. And the code literally says an all-weather road, and it states that it could be on a 20-foot easement and gravel packed
This one was gravel.
to our specifications. So
I just wanted to mention that's not uncommon to.
no,
When they do this.
it's really, the reason it's uncommon is because we don't do it very often.
Yeah.
Most developments automatically have two ways in just by their design. So this one's kind of unique in its shape.
He may have said this and I just missed it because I was reading. How many of these like gravel roads do we have? I mean, because this will be a road in Durant, right?
No, this will be an emergency
I
access.
understand, but is it going to hook to a main road?
Yes, absolutely. We have 3 or 4 of these at different subdivisions in town again, they're an emergency egress only. A lot of times the owners maintain them. Sometimes a homeowners association maintains them. Northridge is one of the ones you're talking about up here on the north side that I'm familiar with. We haven't done one of these in quite a few years. Again, just because of the design of the land, usually there's a second way out. So, but it basically becomes an easement. It's not our road, it's an easement that is something we can access. The property owners could not fence it off in the future, would have to maintain accessibility.
So no one maintains it. We're just hoping the homeowners maintain it. Some good citizen just goes out there and takes care of the gravel
Sometimes if
road.
there's a homeowners association involved, and I'm not sure that there is on this one, that would be a part of something they would maintain. But no, you're right. Generally, it would fall back on us.
Do we have any way to maintain a gravel road?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we have a dozer, we have backhoes, we put in gravel roads. Nobody else is allowed to, but we are.
Marty, I mean, I think maybe the question goes with Councilman Hitchcock. It seems as if, according to you, let me just clarify that our current code allows for gravel roads, provided that gravel emergency access.
Yeah, only for this reason.
Okay, unless the council approves otherwise, like another neighborhood in town.
Sure, I mean,
But, so, would it be something that, and I don't know because I'm not in community development, or would it be something that would be recommended that the council may look to requiring roads rather than gravel emergency accesses and changing the code down the road to keep this from?
Absolutely. If the thing is, he is currently meeting the minimum requirements. So if you want something other than that, the recommendation would be to change the requirements. And in the future, then anything else would have to be, if you decide that you want all these to be paved, that's absolutely acceptable. It's just not currently a requirement. The International Fire Code, which is actually what triggers this for emergency situations, only requires an all-weather gravel road. And the city, somewhere in its past, had adopted the same wording for this specific roadway. Now, streets, alleys, driveways, boulevards, anything else, we have code that says you have to seal surface. This is the one roadway we have discovered in our code that's allowed to continue as a gravel surface.
So this access road, this will give us easement?
It will be an easement so that we will have access to work on it, because if it's private property, we couldn't work on it.
So looking at where the angle part is there, and then the square to the right, where it straightens up, is that included in that also, or does someone else own that property?
Should be, Jay, you already have it? Okay, it's already an easement.
I was just looking at the aerial map and I see there's a house there, so I wasn't sure.
Yeah, it's actually, yeah.
Marty, I have a question. Is there I'm sure there is. What is the distance required between entrances and exits, or points of egress?
I think, and of course I'm quoting code that's not in front of me.
Sure.
I think there's a 26-foot rule or something like that. Not much, to be honest. But you lose 4 lots if you try to put them both in the same location. Logistically, you want them on the opposite ends for safety reasons, obviously, too. So he could have put lots down the center with access on both sides, but then they're front and back lots. Those are actually harder to get rid of, and you waste some space as well. So this, to be honest, from a community development standpoint and the laws that we have in place, this is what I would recommend he do instead of 2 entrances where he would have them normally. And logistically, that other one will never be used. I mean, power line falls across the road, or there's a high-speed collision at 15th and Georgia. I mean, you know, it's just not, it's a residential neighborhood. There's not a lot of traffic. There's not a lot of logistical reasons other than the code requires them to have a second egress.
Any other questions for Marty? We'll remind council and those in attendance, we are in the public hearing portion of the council and anyone in the audience that has any interest and/or is in support or in opposition to this consideration is welcome to come to the podium, identify yourself and your address, and state your comments. Anyone in the audience?
Why not? This is another example of minimal standards. As long as we continue to have minimal standards, we'll have a minimal community. When we upgrade our standards, we'll have a better community. That's all I've got to say.
For the record, that was Mr. Bachman. Anyone else in the audience? Anyone else in the audience? Anyone else regarding PC 2018-08? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing portion of PC 2018-08. Do council members have any further questions of Mr. Marty? If not, are we prepared for a motion? To consider the preliminary plat for property located on the west side, South 15th Avenue between West Georgia Street and Byers Drive. This has been through the process.
Planning and zoning did
Planning and
recommend
zoning.
approval of this. Sorry, I failed to
okay.
mention that.
Marty, did anyone come to you and say anything about this, the people that live there? Any
I
comments
don't,
on that?
was anybody present in protest or?
Yeah, there was a few people that had some concerns on the
And that's Jay Mock, by the way, for those of you who don't know.
15th Street itself. There were some concerns on the width of the road.
Some of the local residents had a concern about the width of 15th Street where his entry would be his primary entrance. It's a fairly narrow portion of roadway. And as we've discussed in the past, it would be nice to expand it, but we don't necessarily feel that's on him. That's a city issue. And so there were some people there to discuss that.
But just on 15th Street?
Yeah. Specifically, just a spot between Georgia and Byers, to be honest. It's a piece that wasn't a road, and then it was a road, but it was a narrow road, and it needs to be expanded in some, and maybe this is the right trigger to think about looking at expanding it. Before we had very many houses there, we really didn't have a reason to, but this may be a good idea for us to look at how we can expand that area. But again, you're talking about a city roadway, not part of his development.
So the preliminary plat allows to go ahead with what, engineering, or is that already?
Yeah, he can begin his engineering for his drainage. He can begin his design of his houses. He'll even be able to begin construction, put in infrastructure, because you're approving where the lots are located and how they're shaped. So he can go ahead and start putting houses on there. He can't occupy the houses until he comes back through the final plat. And at that point, he will be telling you that the roads are ready, the water and sewer is ready, and everything's going to be dedicated to the city at that point. And so he won't be able to occupy houses until that point. The drainage would be ready at that
But he'll
point.
be coming to you with the engineering.
Well, community
and-
development, but
and
yes.
community development
Yes.
and permitting and et cetera, et
Yes.
cetera.
Marty, you said as long as the rules are like they are, they can put gravel roads.
Only for their emergency egress route.
Okay, you said until it's changed. What do we need to do to change it?
Well, you need to, probably the best idea would be to give the community development a heads up that that's what you're wanting to look at. They will look at rewriting the code in a way that it addresses that specific purpose, and it's bring it before this body, and it's real easy to get an ordinance changed.
Could be part of the comprehensive plan.
And it actually may already, he's looking at several of the ordinances for the comprehensive plan for that very reason, because we are a minimal standard community for so much of it.
Well, I'd certainly, for one, be interested in seeing a change to that to avoid gravel roads. That way it's a little bit easier to maintain, it's consistent. But we've had this talk about people meeting the minimum standards and meeting the expectations. So that I'll make a motion to approve PC 2018 dash, oh, wait, hold on, let me back up a little bit. PC 2018-08.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Is there any further discussion?
I have one more question. I think I've got it right, but on the west side of that goes into a retention pond over there. Is that what that is?
Yeah, there is a retention pond on the far west, off his property.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Actually, we have a retention pond out in that pasture.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion, questions? Hearing none, the clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne,
Aye.
Councilmember Groby. Aye. Councilmember Dills.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock,
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Abstain. Motion passes. Item 4B. Consider approval of ordinance 1852, rezoning from general agricultural A1 to manufactured housing R4 district for property located at 998 Parkland Drive, providing for an emergency. Marty?
So this is a piece of property, it's about 3.5 acres on Parkland Drive. It was annexed into the city some very many years ago, and in doing such was given a zone of agricultural 1. This piece of property, like I said, it's 3.2 acres, and it has 5 mobile home structures on it. It is not a mobile home park, nor is it a mobile home development. It's just been operating as a non-conforming continual use since the time that it was brought in. So we have a representative here that wants to change it to R4, and in doing this, bring it closer to an adherence to our zoning code, because it does contain mobile homes. Right now, the only way we can ID within our code to allow them to take off these old mobile homes and put on new mobile homes is to change the code to R4, and then they would be required to plat it as an R4 development. It would be very small. It would only have 4, 5, 6 lots at the end of the day, but it's been used as this use for a long time. Now, the existence of these mobile homes currently are in bad shape, and to be honest, they need to be replaced. They're really in rough shape. 4 of them maybe even aren't very usable at all. We feel like upgrading the mobile homes is the least of the dangers, but the way the code's written, we can't just allow that to automatically happen without perpetuating a non-conforming situation. So, long story short, as a part of the process to utilize this as it's always been used, they're going to have to rezone it and then probably provide some kind of a plat, or we're going to have to look at, another change in code somewhere along the way. Or it makes it so difficult to use, frankly, it may stay in its current condition for a long period of time. If you wanted to tear those down and build houses and put in a street and do everything you have to do to make it even a reasonable neighborhood, the cost is far more than you can get out of this. And so it just doesn't change. And unfortunately, that's what happens with a lot of these in our town that don't get moved very often. It's because it's not they're too cost prohibitive. So what we'd like to do is try to encourage growth and beautification in this area, but by using the code one step at a time. The first step is a zoning change. R4 would allow them to do not only a mobile home individually, but a mobile home park, which again would be cost prohibitive, so that won't happen, or a mobile home development, again, which is just then a subdivision of the land, so each one is on its own lot, and we could try to identify a way to get uses in that area. I'd be happy to answer any questions. This one's been a little bit unique for even us, and the codes that we look up every day, we don't have this come up very often. We've really had to study with it. I've visited with Ms. Sullivan a couple times, as well as Matt has, and we've really just tried to make sure we're following the law and providing her the best opportunity that she can. But I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Is the conditional use permit not applicable kind of here on this, or?
Well, and I'll quote an attorney that told me one time, you got your code that you stay in like a circle. Conditional use permit's really for stuff that's kind of right outside the edge of that circle, you know, close to code. Maybe you're violating one code or two codes, but not 4 or 5. They're far enough out of compliance that they would need forgiveness basically on 6 or 8 different codes that they would be violating if they used it as it is currently. And it's just because it's the wrong zone, and you got too many on a lot, and you got, and the way it's broke up without infrastructure, each one doesn't abut a publicly dedicated roadway. I mean, I could go on. There's a lot of list of limitations there. If there's just one little code that's kind of hanging them up, that's really a good spot for a CUP, but not necessarily for something that's kind of out this far. And Tom might weigh in on that if you would defend us in court if we had to get there, so.
Just based on a review of this and talking to Matt, this really isn't within the realm of what you would anticipate a conditional use permit being used for.
Yeah.
And like Marty said, for the reason that it's too far astray from code compliance. You're not just having to make a single exception or a sort of a close call. This is way beyond. The requested use is way beyond what it's currently zoned for. And maybe for what any of our zoning it is for. Which leads to a question based on something you said. You mentioned a phrase that I haven't heard before, which was a mobile home, not park, but a mobile home
Development. Think in your head something that looks like Heritage Crossing, except they're all mobile homes. That's an R4. The lots have to be the same size as you would like in, say, an R3, 60 wide, 6,000 square foot, 5 foot apart, and each lot can contain a mobile home because it's R4. We've always heard R4 and said mobile home park.
But it requires a plat?
It would require a plat.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And it would require the dedication of infrastructure in a way that each one would have to abut a publicly dedicated roadway. The depth of this makes that difficult because you're going to lose access to a lot of that back land unless you build a roadway that's 60 foot wide, paved to our specs, and it would be very cost prohibitive. I'm not sure what the final answer 2 years from now is on this, but we do know that changing the zoning code or changing the zone is the first step in the right direction.
Marty, as I read the letter from Matt to Mayor and Council, I'm either not reading it right or something, but it references the commission recommending the denial of the rezoning from A1 to R4.
And you're right.
But then recommends approval for R1 district are less restrictive, R2, R3, R4. Which is it?
Mayor, the way I read that is that he's just giving examples of less restrictive zoning, not necessarily
Or
more
options, why wouldn't it?
more restrictive zoning. Well, and so, again, Mr. Mayor, and I apologize, but I wasn't there at the planning commission meeting. I'm reading the notes like you are, and I've had some discussions. But my understanding was they did vote not to approve this particular case. There was some confusion at the planning commission meeting itself where the applicant thought that maybe they could get by with just utilizing it as is in what we call continual non-conforming situation. There was a vote held and it was denied. Now, you know as well as I do that you don't have to rely on that vote. You have your own authority. I would not recommend immediately that this go to, and this is me personally speaking, obviously, because I wasn't at that meeting, I would not recommend personally that this go to R1 or R2. I think R4 is the most appropriate. If you didn't want to ever have a mobile home there again, then your choice would be R3. But that's really the two that would meet the closest to that requirement, that what you need on that site. And again, totally at the pleasure of the council, once you've heard all the sides, maybe somebody else in the crowd that wants to speak, so.
But Marty, just for clarification, from sort of a zoning standpoint, simply changing the zoning to R4 is not going to accomplish the desires of the applicant.
Not completely, no.
How will it accomplish the desires of the applicant at all?
Well, it's the step one of a two-step process. If they're willing to lose access to two of those structures, they could legitimately, after the zone is changed, plat this property and bring that back through, and with approval, remove 4 trailer homes that are existing and old and put in 4 brand new ones. And that's a partial use that they are hoping to get. Complete usage, as is right now currently in our code, is very difficult to imagine, to be honest.
Would it be permissible for the applicant to come back or reapply for an R4 with those additional steps identified and planned? I don't know if that's...
Well, absolutely. So could they bring the plat to you at the same time as the request? And that is absolutely acceptable, except that the fact that we, and it's not of any fault of ours, but we charge them for each appearance. And generally speaking, you're going to charge them to come back again for a decision that you could have made tonight, yes or no. And then they're going to have to basically come back anyway for a plat. I'm just going to throw out a number. So $300 cost to get you here tonight, $300 to bring the plat through, and $300 again to bring this through again. So without making it too difficult.
My concern is a logistical concern from a zoning community development perspective. If the council were to approve this tonight, then you've got a parcel of property out there that's zoned R4.
It's still non-conforming.
It's still non-conforming, and then if the applicant chooses not to come back later and take those additional steps, or those additional steps are denied, we've still got a parcel of property out there then that's R4.
But the only way it can be used is by bringing in a plat, because, see, the community development's not going to let them bring in another trailer house, a new trailer house, without permission, and that's going to trigger the requirement of a plat. Or they take all those off there and they put one brand new trailer house on there. They could use it that way because it's one lot at R4. If they'd split it in any way, it has to come back through community development. If they bring in a new structure in any way, it has to come back through community development. There are triggers to look at it again. So what you're going to do is you're going to allow them to utilize it as R4, but that's currently what it's being utilized as anyway, as a continual process. The only difference is they could take the old trailer off and actually put a new one on, but they'd have to take them all off and put one new one on, unless they come back with a new plat.
Are there any other mobile homes in that area other than ones on this lot?
Trailer park across the street.
Okay.
Yeah. And there's several mobile homes in that area, actually. And to be honest, if the trailer park's on the bottom right, you can see over there. It's off East Main. There's also some to the west of that site between there and Lee Avenue, like in Tucker's Slaughterhouse. For location, it's not bad. They can't put a mobile home park there. We've discussed that. The way our code currently reads, you got to have so many acres. This won't meet the requirements. But they could put a mobile home development or a single mobile home on this with the zoning change, which means they can have a plat or they're going to cut it back down to a single mobile home.
Marty, this may be a question for you or Jordan. I don't know, either one of y'all. When you say a mobile home development, so in my head, I don't know which direction's what on here, but let's just say the right side. Are you thinking just put a road all the way down the side of it and then just have the plats going down the left side, correct?
Well, they could, but it's not going to be. It's going to be very cost prohibitive to put a 60-foot wide sealed surface paved roadway, and the utilities they'd have to dedicate to go with that.
So even if you do this R4, how do you get homes on that lot?
That's what I said a while ago. Right now, you would probably lose access to the back portions of that property.
Across the front.
Across the front, where there's already a publicly dedicated roadway, and I've done the math. It's about 300 feet. So at 60 foot apiece, you could get about 5 across the front with a brand new plat. I mean, they got 6 or 7 on there now. That's as close as I can get, to be honest. Trying to squeeze all the rules out of them I can, but they can't even do that if it's not R4, right? They can't even look at a plat for, now they could bring them through at the same time, but if they can't, we can't approve a plat for mobile homes if it's not R4.
Any other questions for Mr. Marty Cook? Again, we're under the public hearing portion. I think the property owners are probably in the audience. Are there folks in the audience that wish to address this to the council? Either in support of or in opposition to? Yes, ma'am. Can you, Ms. Rowland, can you come up and identify yourself, and so we can get your question on the record?
I ask, would that make a difference in my property, zoned as agriculture?
No,
We own land
I
on
don't
Lee
have the
Avenue.
answer to that, but it's only rezoning. They're only requesting the rezoning of that one
Parkland.
particular property.
Yes.
It wouldn't affect any of the zoning.
Okay, Lee comes down, when you turn off, when you turn off East Main, I don't see the thing.
He's gonna
When you
get it
turn
on
off
that
East
thing.
Main to the left, you go back up a little incline and there's Parkland. Parkland runs east. You take a left and that is Lee Avenue. And we are zoned agriculture. All the way to the Highway 70 east.
It won't affect their property because they're not requesting a zoning request. This piece of property is all.
So it wouldn't change
Byron's,
that
oh,
area
yeah.
of
If you look at the map right there, the outline of this with the star in it is the only property that this will affect.
Okay.
The dark red. You probably got a letter because you live within 300 feet.
I did not get a letter.
Oh, okay. Well, however you were notified, it was never going to affect your property necessarily.
Okay, I was just concerned,
Sure.
sitting here listening.
Yeah. Miss Bonnie Rowland.
Jordan Sullivan from Durant, 1900 Radio Road. I'm not the owner. The owner couldn't make it. I'm a potential buyer. But my wife and I have a manufactured home dealership in Calera. And we were looking at this property to be able to replace some existing structures with potentially new ones. I think it has like 6 or 7 on them, but they are not in shape to where they could even be brought up. The amount of work that it would take in each home would be more than the current value, or more than double the current value of them.
So if we change to R4, is that kind of your plan to go across the front and just lose access to the back?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's actually even in that, it's woods. There's even a small pond back there. So there's the back part of the property is not really usable for homes at all.
Oh, okay. So I couldn't tell from that.
So, I mean, do we have to consider the entire piece as R4?
It is all one legal description, so yes. Unless he brought you 2 separate pieces of property, you can't have one piece of property by legal description have 2 different zones on it.
So they'd have to go back again and
Get a new legal written up. Mm.
I mean,
Do a lot split.
I would just.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I'm telling you, the code that is in existence is going to limit them pretty hard from doing anything more than what they've already said they want to do. Just because it's so hard to get a trailer house in the first place. The way our code's written, it does not encourage them at all. If they do R4 tonight and get a plat out with 5 frontage lots,
City Attorney, this is me asking, but can a motion be to consider the R4 be contingent upon the presentation of a satisfactory plat? I'm hearing that they both can't happen at the same time right now. One's got to happen, then the other's got to happen. But could they get the green light to go ahead contingent upon if that was satisfactory to them, but
so now they're spending the money on the plat too, before you know if you're going to get the zone.
Well, I don't know that I don't know that I would recommend approving the rezoning contingent upon the presentation of the plat. What I would probably recommend is continuing this hearing until such time as they present a plat. And then at that time, once they present a plat, you could put this agenda item on first, put the plat on next, and just approve if the council.
And that might be a couple months, because it would have to go
Yeah.
through planning commission first, and letters would have to be sent out and all that for a plat as well.
And so if it was the council's pleasure to sort of have them done at the same time, rather than rezoning and then possibly it never being followed through, I would recommend maybe tabling this and then resetting it upon the request of the applicant at the same time that a plat is presented.
Okay, so that I understand, they've had the expense to get this far, but other than whatever the preliminary plat would require, there's not that same, they're not.
If we continue it, you're right. We would not have to bring it
Okay.
back through planning commission and council. It's already here, so let's keep it here. And we would just bring the plat through. The plat would be another expense, but it's another expense they were going to have to absorb anyway. Now, the cost of manufacturing the plat, and then they're bringing it to you in good faith, saying, here's my acceptable plat, and if you don't grant the zone, then they've absorbed that cost. So just a thought. And I'm not here to make them money or you either one, but just trying to be reasonable.
Council, is the council have any objections to continuing this request?
I wish there was an easier way. I mean, I'm not against what they're trying to do. It's just trying to do it right. And I agree with what the city attorney's saying, is if they change their mind and say, we're not going to do this, and then we've already rezoned it, and this person still has it, and then who knows what happens from there.
What'll happen is it'll come back through with a plat, or they'll take everything off and put one trailer on it. That's all they can do without pre-approval.
And then there's that. That's pretty much from this point, if we do go ahead tonight with R4, because the way I'm hearing, it's not inhabitable, so someone's going to have to correct the situation either
Right.
way.
I'm not suggesting that my proposal is great or even good. So I'm just, this is pretty unusual, and so I'm not
Very
sure any of the
unique.
options
Yeah.
are great, but I'm not.
I would remind you too that we have again, we have triggers in place for this stuff. So when they come back and say, I want to put a new trailer on here, well, we're going to look at it. We're going to say, you got too many, you got to remove this and that. If they come back and they want to divide the land up, there's lot split, there's plat, there's different things they got to do for process. They really can't do anything on this without your permission again, except take everything off and put one trailer on, or continue to live in them as they are, which they could do without seeing you tonight. So, I mean, really, you're not opening them up for a lot of extra. It can't be developed into a mobile home park. It's not big enough by code. A mobile home development would be really unfeasible by design because of the cost. So really, they're never going to get more than 5 mobile homes on this thing. But they can't even do that without coming and seeing you again.
I'm reminded of the proverbial between a rock and a hard place.
Mhm.
And I think you guys can understand the council's struggling with trying to do the right thing here, not only for the city, but for you as a citizen. I personally am kind of seeing a way to get there. I think it's going to take some good faith, possibly here. I'll just jump out there. I'm not opposed to continuing this so that these folks can continue to visit with community development, either get some good faith handshakes and probably spend a little extra money, or not extra, because I think it'd be required at some point anyway. But if we can get, I agree, I can't vote to approve that on the possibility that it might or might not happen. When to do the right thing, we need for it to happen, or for me anyway. I'm
My
not
question,
trying
I
to
mean, if they can't do anything but put one trailer park on, or trailer, what does it matter? Like, I mean, that's my question is, I mean, why make it come back through and have to have this discussion again and have a public hearing again? I mean, if it's going to be.
I don't think their intent is to put one trailer.
Well, I know,
though.
but I mean,
know.
even if we
I think they
vote it
only-
through tonight, they can't do anything but that, right?
Yeah, and if they
So it
put
doesn't
more on
really
it, they
matter.
gotta come back to you anyway.
So,
Jordan?
I was going to say what Chad was saying is, if the plat that we present doesn't work and it's changed to R4, the only thing that can be added is just one home.
yeah.
And there's already trailers in the area. I mean, on the Parkland Road, you pass multiple ones before you even get to that one.
And I guess I'm trying to think further ahead. I'm not so much worried. I know you guys are going to try and do the right thing. It's the next person that maybe won't do the right thing. But
As far as the depth of the property, I don't see any way that you could add anything on the back. There's 2 metal structures that have electric, concrete. There's a pond back there, so it's only the road frontage that you could do anything with.
And if I measured, that's 300 feet, which should give you like 5 lots. But again, to do that, they gotta come back to you with a plat.
So, can I make a motion?
Sure.
Move to approve ordinance number 1852, section 1.
second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discuss? Wait a minute. I didn't close public hearing.
Okay, that's why I was wondering if I could make a motion right there.
I'm sorry. Would you withdraw your motion for the time being?
So I'll withdraw my motion, yeah.
And the second is withdrawn. For the record,
Yes.
Vice Mayor withdraws his motion. The second's been rescinded. Anyone else in the public wish to speak? Anyone in the public? Anyone else? Yes.
Bonnie, did you get your answer, what you wanted?
Yes, I was just mainly concerned if they change that later years, will they make us change where we are?
No.
Connected to
No.
Parkland.
No.
We're on
No.
Parkland and Lee.
Yeah.
But you're okay with the answer, Bonnie?
Yes.
I mean, the only one who can change her property is her, right? She's on the property.
That I know of, we can't change it. She has to initiate that. But any other comments from the public? We'll close the public hearing portion. Any other comments from council? Hearing none, I entertain a motion.
Move to approve ordinance number 1852, section 1.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne,
Aye.
Councilmember Groby,
Aye.
Councilmember Dills,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock,
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Aye, motion carries.
Move to approve section 2.
Thank you.
Motion for section 2 and a
With you.
second. The clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne,
Aye.
Councilmember Groby,
Aye.
Councilmember Dills,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock,
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Aye, motion carries. You okay, Marty?
I think I'm gonna make it. Let's go one more. Let's go one more.
That's probably one of the most complicated
it's
ones
easy.
we've ever
Item
done.
4C, consider approval of PC
It was odd. I knew it.
2018-10, a preliminary plat for property located on Choctaw, excuse me, for property located on Choctaw Road, west of Highway 6975.
So this is a piece of property on Choctaw Road, over between the Burger King and the Choctaw Elderly Housing Area. It is owned by the Choctaw Nation. They're going to put in, it's about 15.75 acres, and they're going to put in 40 single-family homes on this piece of property. It has been rezoned to meet the current zoning requirements. This preliminary plat would show you the design, and it's really just a horseshoe in and out. Can you go to the plat, Byron? This is, again, a preliminary plat that we're approving tonight. So it's a horseshoe, no, that was it. It's a horseshoe in and out with Choctaw running across the north end there. All on their property. We haven't had any calls or memos about this one, and Planning Commission did vote to recommend approval of this preliminary plat with a 4-0-1 vote. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions for Marty regarding PC 2018-10?
This is the same one we just did the zoning on not too long ago?
Zoning just happened a few months ago, yeah. It's going to be in 2 phases. You can see that dark gray area in the middle there of lot 34 and 35. It's going to be a temporary road out until they get it built to that point, because that's where the cultural center is currently. So the phase 1 would have the second way out to Burger King, and then they would move the cultural center, and then they would continue and finish with phase 2 with the last 10 lots.
More appropriate, I think, is cultural offices.
Offices, sorry, okay. I'll accept your expertise.
Get them. Nine
Any-
o'clock, mayor's getting chippy.
We all are.
Any other questions from council members for PC 2018-10? Not, we'll open up the public hearing portion. Anyone in the audience wish to address PC 2018-10? Anyone in the audience? Anyone in the audience? Anyone in the audience? We'll close the public hearing portion for PC 2018-10. Council have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, clerk record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne.
Aye.
Councilmember Groby.
Aye.
Councilmember Dills.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock.
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Abstain,
Thank you,
and the
Council.
motion carries. Item 4D. Thank you, everyone. Public hearing regarding Resolution 2018-16. Do we have something to go back to?
We need to go back to C when we get done
But
with
that's
public
after
hearing.
this, right?
Yes.
Okay, where was it? Just
3C.
Yeah, okay, gotcha. Okay, just a reminder that we'll have 3C to go back to after this 4D public hearing regarding Resolution 2018-16, a request of approval of the fiscal year 18-19 budget. Mr. Buckley.
Yeah, Mayor and Council.
And
We are-
I'm sorry, Greg.
Yes.
Just FYI, city manager handed a letter out to all of us just prior to the meeting, I think. Everybody get that?
Yeah, I left it on everybody's, I gave everybody a copy.
Looks like this.
It was right after we got started. I've got some extras.
Okay.
There it is, right there.
I think it's standard for the city manager to have a cover letter.
Yes.
And this is that cover letter addressed to council.
Yes,
And
sir.
I just wanted to, but I didn't mean to interrupt, Greg, but I wanted to be sure everybody knew we had the cover letter. Mr. Buckley.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Resolution 2018-16 does formally comply with the Oklahoma Municipal Budgeting Act. We have properly filed the notice for public hearing. It does meet the timelines. And then we also have the opportunity after public hearing for adoption if council so chooses. But it is a requirement to hold at least one public hearing related to the budget for public comment. The resolution does outline that we are working from a department level, so the resolution does outline the specific approval of what council's approving related to budget for the general fund, and then the specific departments related to those costs, and other funds that fall within the purview of council. We've previously already adopted or recognized the financial statements from the other authorities that have to be submitted to council in compliance, and we have already done that. So this is the last stage related to the actual body of council for next fiscal year. The anticipated budget revenues are anticipated to be $17,047,922, with a general fund expenditure within the general fund of $16,795,727. So we are a balanced budget. We are anticipating to having actually more revenue than we are budgeting expenditures. The other main fund within is the capital improvement funds, which is anticipating to have expenditures of $3,611,068 or $3,611,068, with other funds that are identified related to our dedicated sales tax, our lodging tax, or our specific funds, and those are all identified within those specific amounts. So that outlines the actual budget structure. We have provided council a budget supplement that does outline more specifically within the departments and those funds the anticipated expenditures of how these dollars that are being appropriated would be anticipated to be expended. Within that document, we do show some administrative change functions on the structure of the expenditures. Some of those details outline that, you know, it appears that our health insurance is going up significantly related to some specific within departments. Actually, that's just sort of a reallocation. We went from a self-funded plan to a fully insured plan mid-year. It was November 1 is when we made that change. And with that, we actually now are wanting to recognize fully within the department, so they structurally have within the department those allocated costs. So we know that our approximate annual employee premiums a little over $1,000 per month. Insurance for family coverage is about $1,700 a month, and the employee does provide some contribution towards that family coverage. Those are identified within those specific departments. Previous years, when we were under our self-funded plan, we had budgeted amount that anticipated our claims experience, and if our claims experience exceeded what we had budgeted through payroll and through the departments, then we actually did fund transfers from DCUA or other funds to supplement our risk management fund to pay those claims. So we actually now specifically know what our full cost of insurance is going to be, and we're properly allocating those dollars where they should be within those departments for those expenditures. That will also help us better identify what the costs are associated with those specific departments for those personnel services, instead of having sort of a blended understanding of we're pulling dollars from somewhere else to supplement insurance. We now can identify that those specific costs are identified. So if we want to do an analysis of what's it costing us to run that department, we have a fuller picture of those expenditures. The other aspect that is sort of a change is we're combining the city treasurer and the finance departments into blending those into a single under the city treasurer. So all our finance departments or functions will actually be under one department or division, which would be the city treasurer. So that'll incorporate the city treasurer, the finance manager, assistant city treasurer, our accounts payable, our accounts receivables, and central purchasing will all now fall within one division of one department. To again, trying to better understand what our full costs are for our financial function related to the city and those operations. There's some other administrative aspects that we've made some dollars and moved some dollars around, and that's really not addressed for council as a policy. It really just sort of reallocates how we, from the finance perspective, or for staff perspective, better managing those funds from a staff perspective. but it really doesn't change the impact of what council is authorizing or appropriating for us to expend. I can get into a whole lot more detail, but it really kind of, I know it's late and the dollars are the dollars.
I'll remind the council and, that's still on? I'll remind us and the council, or the council and those in the audience, we are under the public hearing portion, so anyone in the audience has any comments or questions regarding the budget proposal that's under consideration, you'll have that opportunity to ask those questions. At this time, the council members have any questions for Mr. Buckley and our Tim Rundle, our city manager, regarding the approval request?
Yes, ma'am.
Under the other funds, the Quart of Cent Sales Tax Economic Development Fund is $2,139. Did we carry some money forward, or where did we get that? Because the Quart of a Cent sales tax won't bring that much in.
What page you're on?
Well, let's,
Page
with it,
2.
I think just right here.
page 2 of the resolution.
Page 2. I'm sorry. Which one with the supplement?
Well, I'm looking on the resolution.
I'm real curious.
Mr. Buckley, it might be easier on the resolution itself. It's just on page 2 of section 1.
Yep.
I think I see what she's talking about.
Yeah, that's the first one under the other funds. I was just looking to see if my and actually that is yes, ma'am. There is a carryover of approximately $1,900,000 related to that fund. It's a balance carryover. The actual anticipated revenue of the quarter state sales tax directly is $952,500. So there is carryover related to that.
So there was no carryover on the others?
Yes, correct, because those are pass-throughs. So those actually pass through and go to debt service or pass through to those agencies.
Any other questions from council members for Mr. Buckley or Mr. Rundle? Not anyone in the audience?
Again, no problem with the budget per se. My thing is, it would be appreciated by myself and others if the budget could be presented to the public more than a few days before it's expected to be passed by the council. I have presented a list of questions to Councilman Hitchcock about the budget, and he won't have time to answer them before he votes. If we had maybe a 2-week period where the budget was made public, so the public could look at it, independent accountants could look at it as we've had done, then we could maybe function a little bit better, and we won't be making snap decisions and being uninformed in doing so. I don't think that's an unreasonable request. Thank you.
Yes, sir. I would just respond a little to Mr. Bachman's comment that historically the budget is not a few days long or weeks long, it's several months long, beginning in about February, for the treasurer, city manager, finance manager, assistant treasurer, to begin putting that together. I've only sat in on some committee meetings on that over the years, and I know there's a lot of work and a lot of time and effort that goes into the preparation of a municipality's budget. I think a lot of things have to come together, just in time for the city to meet the state and legislative requirements that are required by law. And I don't disagree. It'd be nice if we could have it 30 or 60 days even, and at least 30 days. But it's been my experience that historically the budget generally comes together with a matter of generally a couple of weeks at the most, for not only this council but for the public as well to review. Could that be a longer period of time? I'm not sure, Mr. Bachman, but I know people knock themselves out to get it done, and
And I'd like, if I could, Mayor,
Sure.
I mean, we had our treasurer resign end of March. A couple weeks later, our assistant treasurer resigned. We had to act quickly. Myself being here through only one budget process last year, just kind of coming in October and getting started in February, March, as you said, to get the first budget in place. So again, we're not making any excuses. I do agree with you, Mr. Bachman. These documents need to be provided in a timely fashion. But between myself, and I'd like to commend Mr. Buckley and our fiduciary services that's providing the accounting services for us right now, Judy Siemens. We spent several hours, several days going through and developing this budget, as well as with all the department heads. I still got a few department heads here left tonight, and I'd like to acknowledge them too, because they spent several hours in developing budgets and presenting them to us as well. So there was it wasn't something that was just kind of slapped together, because it was something that we all, took a lot of time and effort to put together. But I agree. But unfortunately last year when we went through this process, as you know, we had 2 or 3 meetings. It was, but this year, kind of being under the gun of having, Mr. Buckley's done a great job of just stepping in as the interim treasurer, as well as running 6 or 7 other departments on top of that. And Ms. Siemens coming in with no knowledge, or no history, and no historic knowledge of all the intricacies of our finances here. And so, and again, I'm not making an excuse, but I think they did a fine job in getting this before council tonight. And as the mayor stated, should be commended as well.
My statement was just basically for the future, so hopefully when the next budget's presented, we get a little bit more time to look at it before it's done. I don't think 2 weeks is unreasonable, I really don't. There's no reason that couldn't be accomplished.
I agree. Like I said, this year had some unique circumstances, and again, I'm not making excuses, just it is what it is. And but I like I said, I feel confident that the budget you have before you tonight is solid and is a good game plan for this next year as well.
Anyone else in the audience?
And just for clarifications, once this is adopted and the resolution's passed, we'll go from the draft mode to the full budget mode, and we'll put the entire budget with line item by line item up on it as well, so, for the public as well.
Anyone else in the audience? Anyone else in the audience? Anyone else in the audience? We'll close the public hearing portion of the budget hearing. We'll respectfully take into consideration Mr. Bachman's comments, and I think the city manager would make every effort to, as he's mentioned, maybe things will be more in line with getting a budget prepared maybe a little earlier next year, but circumstances sometimes dictate that sort of thing. Council have any other questions or comments? If not, we'll entertain a motion.
Actually, we just closed the public hearing, which finishes 4D, and then we need to go back to 3C.
Yeah, that's right.
There's no action taken or necessary on the public hearing portion.
So no action required on
Correct. We
4D.
met our obligation related to the statutory requirements for holding a public hearing.
For the record, 4D requires no action. And saying that, we go back to
3C.
agenda item 3C.
Yes, sir.
Well, I had it. Okay. Under administration. And that is to consider approval of resolution 2018-16, adopting the proposed budget for fiscal year 2018-19. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2018-16.
Second.
Have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion?
And I'll echo what you said as far as this year's probably definitely an exception, but I just ask, hopefully in the future, we can get the entire proposed budget online rather than just the resolution. I think that probably alleviates some of the issues and concerns about transparency.
Point well taken, Councilmember Destry Hawthorne, and I want to just echo again the efforts, time and effort of the city manager, Greg, Judy, and all the department heads and their efforts to, on an annual basis of having to work through this budget process. It truly is a major undertaking. Would you agree, Mr. Paul Bunce? In saying that, any other further discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne,
Aye.
Councilmember Groby,
Aye.
Councilmember Dills,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock,
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Appreciate your
Greg,
time.
thank you. Okay, so I think we've already gone over information items. Item number 6, under citizen comments. I think we had one for the city council meeting. Jim Thorpe.
Me.
You're gonna make 2 appearances tonight, huh?
I'm here 2 times a night. That's real good. I got some very serious concerns, and I don't know if anybody's ever thought about this. We have a $20 million city project coming up to be voted on. My concern, I talked to Charles Callahan earlier tonight, And he said in the last 40 to 50 years, we have never had to go to the ad valorem tax and this kind of tax for the city of Durant. Now, usually, if you have an ad valorem tax, it's always for the schools. And, you know, I'm hearing rumors that within the next 2, 3, 4 years, it's going to be big enough to have another elementary school. And we're taking this ad valorem tax, and this is where the city or the school board usually gets their money for building, even for city buses and all this. And I think we're setting them up when they start looking for another elementary school and the millions of dollars they need, and we're taking it out of the bonds right now to where usually the school board gets their money. I think the Board of Education and the school teachers they won't right now, but within 3 or 4 years, when they come up against the city of Durant and hollering to the city people to pay more property taxes after y'all already got this from us now, and they get voted down for their next school, there's going to be a price to be paid because they will have nowhere else to get their money. And people say, okay, let's just look at the high school. That high school was a massive debt, over $40 million. That was the only place that was going to get the money for that high school. But when they go back to the elementary school in the next 3 or 4 years, they cannot go back to a sales tax. We got the highest sales tax. We got a higher sales tax in Denison, Sherman, and everybody in eastern Oklahoma. So this grade school that they want to build later on, they cannot build it with tax. So that's done. And we're using their money that they usually use for bonds to build schools. I see in the next, I don't know if y'all have looked at it or not, but I see in the next 3 or 4 years, there's going to be some city council members up here that they're looking at that put this on the ballot. And when they can't get their grade school and they see that, they're going to be very, very upset. I don't know if y'all look that far down the road, but I mean, you know, this is almost like kicking the Board of Education underneath the bus. I don't think y'all have looked at it like this. Man, y'all set yourselves up for a failure. They have nowhere to go. They can't go for another 1 cent tax. We can't get up. If we get up to 11% on the tax, my gosh, they'll run us all out of town. All the people in their houses and all the businesses. You made this good a place. If you go up to 11%, you made this place the worst place to live in southeastern Oklahoma. I just want to comment. We're set up. We're set up for a failure in 3 or 4 years.
I would recommend that you come next week to the town hall meeting. We'll spend an hour, hour and a half going over all these questions that you're bringing up tonight.
We can go over all these questions, but there's nowhere to go.
I would disagree, and I'd invite you to come next Tuesday night to the town hall meeting.
Well, I'd like to hear a comment now.
I don't have an hour and a half to sit here and rebut all your things, but I will tell you.
I'll comment.
Yeah.
Because, well, it's not this council against anybody. So that's all I'll say, Jim. And as much as I respect you and your opinions, I hope you'll respect mine.
Yes.
Yes, sir. But it's not about being for or against somebody. That's totally irrelevant, and I'll leave it at that. Any other? I mean, do you have anything else to say? You got a little more time.
Well, I thank y'all for letting me come up here.
Okay. Okay. We didn't have anybody else, I think, signed up for the citizen comments. Anything under new business? Hearing none. We are at a time to consider a motion to adjourn, I think. Have we covered all the business?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
We got a motion, we got a second to adjourn. The clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne,
Aye.
Councilmember Groby,
Aye.
Councilmember Dills,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock.
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Aye, we are adjourned. Thank you all.